Chapter 102 takes a slight glance at Tobias and his intended. The idea of the cook being starved to death had quite reconciled Todd to the notion of leaving him alone, so he left the shop and proceeded to his own domicile in Fleet Street. And as nothing of great moment has occurred during his absence, we will take the liberty of conducting the reader to the house of Colonel Jeffrey, and taking a slight peep at our old friend Tobias, whom we left in rather a critical position. Tobias had been in so delicate a condition prior to the last outrage of Todd at the Colonel's house, that one may suppose such a thing would go far towards terminating his mortal career, and so truly it did. But in youth there is such a tenacity to life that we may fairly look for the most extraordinary things in the shape of clinging to the vital principle, and in the way of getting over injuries. Poor Tobias was, to be sure, thrown back by Todd's attack, but he was not destroyed. The medical man gave it as his opinion that the mental shock was by far worse than the physical injury, and he said to the colonel, "Some means must be devised to make him believe that he is quite free from any further attack upon the part of Todd, or he will never recover. He will awaken, it is true, from the trance he is now in, but it will be to all the horrors and dread of some expected fresh attack from Todd. But I will assure him of my protection," said the colonel. "I will in the most positive manner tell him that he shall here be perfectly safe from that man." "Excuse me, Colonel," replied the surgeon, "but all that was done before, and yet Tobias has found that Todd reached him, evening in one of the rooms of this house. You will find that he will be very skeptical regarding your powers to protect him now from that bold and infamous man. I hope I am not offending you, Colonel, by my plain speaking?" "Not at all, my dear sir, not at all. Do not think of such a thing. Plain speaking, when it is dictated by friendly feeling, is one of the most admirable things in all the world, and no one can possibly admire it more than I do. I feel, too, the full force of what you have said, and that to the ears of Tobias it would sound like a farce for me to offer to protect him from the further assaults of Sweeney Todd. But something may be done that is quite of a decisive character upon the subject, Colonel." "What do you mean?" "I mean that to sick folks I say anything that I think will tend to their recovery, evening although I may feel that I am a little transgressing the bounds of truth. We must consider what we say to people in the position of Tobias, as so much medicine artfully administered to him." "I quite agree with you, and I feel that you have some important suggestion to make to me regarding Tobias." "What is it?" "Then, Colonel, if I were you, I should not hesitate for one moment to tell him that Todd was dead." "Dead?" "Yes, that is the only thing that will thoroughly convince Tobias he has nothing further to fear from him. I think it not only one of those delusions that are in themselves harmless, but I think it a justifiable dose of moral medicine." "It shall be done," said the colonel. "It shall be done. I do not hesitate about it for a moment. I thank you for the idea, and if that will do Tobias any good, he shall have the full benefit of it at my hands." "Shall we seek him now?" "Yes, I hope that he is in a state to fully comprehend what is said to him, and in that case the sooner we say this from which we expect such good results, the better it will be. I am most anxious to witness the effect it will have upon his mind, Colonel. If I mistake not, it will be one far exceeding anything you can suppose." Upon this they both went upstairs to the chamber in which poor Tobias lay. The boy was upon a bed, lying to all appearance bereft of sense. His breathing was rather laborious, and every now and then there was a nervous twitching of the muscles of the face, which bespoke how ill at ease the whole system was. At times, too, he would mutter some incoherent words, during which both the medical man and the colonel thought they could distinguish the name of Todd. "Yes," said the surgeon, "that is the spectre that is ever present to the imagination of this poor boy, and we must speedily get rid of it from him, or it will assuredly kill him. I would not answer for his life another 24 hours, if his fancy were still to continue to be tortured by an expectation of the appearance of Todd. Will you, or shall I, speak to him?" "You, if you please, Colonel. He knows your voice better no doubt than he does mine." Colonel Jeffrey bent his head close down to Tobias's ear, and in a clear, correct voice spoke to him. "Tobias, I have come to say something very important to you." It is something which I hope will do you good to hear. Do you comprehend me, Tobias? The sufferer uttered a faint groan, as he tossed one of his arms uneasily about upon the coverlet. You quite understand me, Tobias. Only say that you do so, and I shall be satisfied to go on, and say to you what I have to say. Todd, gasped Tobias. Oh, God, coming, he is coming. You hear, said the surgeon. That is what his imagination runs upon. That is proof conclusive. It is, poor boy, said the colonel, but I wish I could get him to say that he fully comprehends my words. Never mind that. I would recommend that you make the communication to him at once, and abruptly. It will, in all likelihood, thus have more effect than if you dilute it by any great note of preparation before it reaches his ears. The colonel nodded his acquiescence, and then, once more inclining his mouth to Tobias's ear, he said, in clear and moderately loud accents, Sweeney Todd is dead. Tobias at once sprang up to a sitting posture in the bed, and cried, No. Is it really so? Yes, added the colonel. Sweeney Todd is dead. For a moment or two Tobias looked from the colonel to the surgeon, and from the surgeon to the colonel, with a bewildered expression of countenance, and then burst into tears. That will do, said the surgeon. It has succeeded, whispered the colonel, fully. It could not do better. He will recover full consciousness now when those tears are over. All will go well with him. But do not, by word or look, insinuate the remotest doubt of the truth of what you have told him. It would be better to say the same thing to any of the servants that may come about him. I will, and particularly to his master, whom I would as soon trust with a secret as I would with the command of a regiment of cavalry. Tobias wept for the space of about 10 minutes, and then he looked up with a face in which there was a totally different expression to what it had borne but a short time previously, and with a faltering voice he spoke, And so Todd is gone at last. He has, replied the colonel, and, therefore, you may now, Tobias, make your mind quite easy about him. Oh, quite, by the long breath that Tobias drew, it was evident what an exquisite relief it was to him to be able to feel that the man who had been the bane of his young life was no more. No assurance of protection from him could have come near the feeling of satisfaction that he now felt in the consciousness of such a release. But Todd, being dead, settled the affair at once. There was no drawback upon his satisfaction. Oh, he said, I do truly feel that life is with me again, and that I can be happy. Where is Minna? She cannot remain here always, replied the colonel, but she will be in the house shortly, upon a visit to your mother, and you shall yourself have the pleasure of communicating the welcome news of Todd's death to her, news which to her bears as great a significance as it does to you. Oh, yes, replied Tobias. Minna will be pleased. We ought not to rejoice at the death of any one, but then Todd was so very, very bad a man, that his dying is a good thing, as it keeps him from loading his soul with more wickedness. That, said the medical man, is the proper view to take of the matter, Tobias. But now you will permit me to say to you that you should not talk too much, nor overtax your young strength. I will darken the room by closing the shutters, and it is highly desirable that you should enjoy a few hours' calm sleep, which now, with the conviction that Todd is dead, I do not see any difficulty in your doing. Oh, no, said Tobias, with quite a bright expression upon his face. Oh, no, I shall sleep well now, quite well, for what have I to fear now? These few words were spoken in such a tone of calm composure that the colonel had every reason to rejoice in the experiment he had tried, upon the advice of the medical man. The latter closed the shutters of the room all but one, so that there was but a soft and chastened light in the room, and then, with a smile upon his face, Tobias, after hoping that they would arouse him when Minna should come, and receiving a promise that way, turned his face to his pillow, and composed himself to the first pure rest he had had since the attack that the villain Todd had made upon him in the colonel's house. It is not much of a deception, said Colonel Jeffrey to the surgeon, when the latter was leaving the house, for I believe now that Todd's hours are truly numbered. He will be arrested tonight. I am glad to hear it, replied the surgeon. Such a notable villain ought to be as quickly as possible put out of the world. He ought, truly, and from what I hear from Sir Richard Blunt, I believe that before 24 hours are gone over my head, the whole of London will ring with the name of Todd, and the story of his frightful criminality. Tobias slept quietly and securely for 4 hours, during which space of time he was twice visited by Minna Gray, who had arrived while he was in that state of repose. The colonel, although he felt the danger of letting Mrs. Wagg know that the report to Tobias of the death of Todd was premature, felt no such scruple with regard to Minna. Truly he considered that it would have been an insult to her judgment not to have told her exactly how the case stood. When she heard it all, and upon visiting Tobias's bedroom, found what a sweet sleep he was in, and what a quiet, gentle smile was upon his face, she tearfully acknowledged what a good thing the innocent deception was which had produced such a result. It will save him, she said. It will, replied the colonel, and be sure that you keep sufficient guard over yourself to keep from betraying the secret. Oh, sir, trust me, I will. And remember that in this house, Minna, it is known only to you and to me. If Tobias should ask you anything about it, you had better know nothing, for I promised him that he should have the pleasure of making the communication to you himself. Therefore you cannot be puzzled by any questions regarding particulars when he is your informant. Minna joyfully concurred with all that the colonel said upon this head, and then, after a long talk with Mrs. Rag in the kitchen, that good lady having the most implicit faith in the story of the death of Todd, and the profoundest hope that she should soon hear the full particulars of that event, she betook herself to the bedside of Tobias, there to await his awakening. When he did open his eyes, they were clear and bright, and the fever had left his brow and cheeks. The first object his eye rested upon was Minna, and the first words he said were, "Todd is dead." "Ah, then, Tobias, you have nothing now to fear, for you have not an enemy in the world." "No," he cried, "I have now nothing to fear, but, my Minna, my own, my beautiful, how much I have to love." Chapter 6. Mr. Lupin has a singular interview with Mrs. Oakley. Amid all the exciting circumstances that it has been our duty to relate, amid the turmoil of events consequent upon the wild villainy of Todd, and the urgent attempts of Mrs. Lovett to get her accounts audited, we have very much lost sight of Mrs. Oakley. Perhaps the reader has not been altogether unwilling to lose sight of a lady who, we will admit, was not calculated to make great advances in his esteem. But yet one thing must be recollected, and that is that Mrs. Oakley is Johanna's mother. That we opine is a fact, which she should be given some degree of attention for, and insomuch as the bright eyes of the fair and noble-minded Johanna may be dimmed by an additional tear if anything very serious was to become of Mrs. Oakley, we will go a little out of our way just now to see what that deluded parson-ridden woman is about. The outgoings and the incomings of Mrs. Oakley for a long time past had been so various and discursive that the poor spectacle maker had long since left off considering that he had anything in the shape of a domestic establishment. Certainly, Johanna was always at hand, until lately, to attend to her father's comforts, but the wife never. There was either a prayer meeting, or a love feast, or some congregation or another assembled to hear or to see Mr. Lupin, so that if the wife and the mother went to such places to learn her duties, it was pretty evident that the lesson occupied the whole of her time. But still at times she did come home. At odd seasons she was to be found groaning and snuffling at the fireside in the little dark parlor at the back of the shop. But now for some few days she had totally disappeared. Mr. Oakley was alone, up a dingy court in the city, not 100 miles from the dingy purlieus of Monkwell Street. There was a dingy conventicle, upon the front of which the word Ebenezer announced its character, or its would-be character. The upper part of this chapel was converted into a dwelling-place, and there luxuriated Mr. Lupin. The flock geese, of course, of the reverend gent rented the edifice, so that there he was rent-free, and there he was in the habit of inviting to tea such of the females of his congregation who either had money of their own, or whose husbands had tills easily accessible, or pockets into which the wife's hand could be dipped at discretion, and dipped it generally was at indiscretion, for folks, whether they be wives or not, when they can dip into other folks' pockets, do not always know how much to take just and no more. Now Mr. Lupin had established a 3 days 2 hours and general subscription saving grace prayer, which consisted of praying every 2 hours for 3 days and 3 nights, and at each prayer making an offering in hard cash for the use of the church and the gospel. He Mr. Lupin being both the church and the gospel. Alas, what will not human folly in the name of religion stoop to? There were women, mothers of families, who came to Mr. Lupin's house above the chapel with what plunder they could get together, and there actually stand the 3 days and 3 nights, the reverend gent making it his duty to keep them awake at the end of every 2 hours at least, as he pretended to pray, and sending them away completely placid, but with the comfortable conviction, as they themselves expressed it, that their souls were saved alive. Mrs. Oakley was one of these dupes. Now, although these proceedings were very profitable to Mr. Lupin, he found that it was very irksome to get up himself in the middle of the night to awaken the sinners to prayer, so he used to introduce brandy and water after he had pretty well tired out his devotee, and ascertained the amount of money he was likely to get, and in the confusion of mind consequent upon that gentle stimulant, the time went on very glibly. Sister Oakley, said Lupin, on the evening of the first day of Mrs. Oakley's residence beneath his highly spiritual roof. Sister Oakley, truly you will be a great brand snatched from the burning. How much money have you got? Alas, said Mrs. Oakley, business must be bad, for I only found in the till £3 11 and sixpence. Mr. Lupin groaned, but I will from time to time take what I can, and let you have it, for the welfare of one's precious soul is above all price. Truly, Sister Oakley, it is, and you may as well give me the small installment now if it shall seem right unto you, sister. I thank you in the name of the Lord. Humph, only £3 11 and sixpence. Well, well, we shall do better another time, perhaps, sister. Rest in peace, and I will from time to time come in and awaken you to prayer. Truly and truly I have a hard time of it always. It was on the second night that fatigue had had a great effect upon Mrs. Oakley, and upon the reverend gent likewise, that he brought her a tumbler of hot brandy and water, saying as he placed it by her, Truly I have had a dream, and the Lord told me to give you this. I pray you take it, Mrs. Oh, and may it put you in mind of the glory of the world that is to come. Amen. Mr. Lupin retired, and as the stimulant was not at all an ungrateful thing to Mrs. Oakley, she was about to raise it to her lips, when a stunning knock at the chapel door made her give such a start, that she dropped glass and spirit and spoon to the ground. No doubt a repetition of the knock at the moment prevented Lupin from hearing the crash which the fall in spirits produced. Mrs. Oakley heard him open the window of his room, and in a voice of stifled anger cry, Who is there? Who is there? It's me, Groggs, and you know it, said a female voice. Come down and open the door, or I will rouse the whole neighborhood. Come, you be off. I have someone here. What, another idiot? Ho, ho, ho. Why, Groggs, they will find you out some day and limb you. If they only knew that you were Groggs the returned transport, how they would mob you to be sure. But I have come for money, old fellow, and I will have it. I ain't drunk, but I have had enough. Just enough. Mark me, old boy, and you know what I am capable of when that's the case. I am your wife, and you know it. Ho, ho. Dab came the knocker again upon the chapel door. Do you want to be my ruin? Said Lupin. Stay a moment, and I will throw you out 5 shillings, but if you make any noise you shall not have one farthing from me. Shall I not? Ho, ho, shall I not? 5 shillings truly. The lady upon this, feeling no doubt that both her wants and his powers of persuasion were made very light of, commenced such a tremendous knocking at the door, that the terrified Lupin at once descended to let her in, uttering such terrible curses as he went that Mrs. Oakley was petrified with dismay. Foolish woman, did she expect that her idol would turn out to be anything but a common brazen image? In the course of a few moments she heard the couple coming upstairs again, and when they reached the top, she heard Lupin say, "Confound you, you always will come with your infernal demands at the very worst and most awkward times and seasons to me. Did you not take £10 some time ago, and promise to come near me no more?" "Ha, ha, yes, I did. But I am here again, you see. You thought I would drink myself to death with that amount of money, and that you would get rid of me, but it did me good. Ho, ho, ho. The good stuff did me good." "You are a fool," said Lupin. "I tell you, woman, you will be my ruin, my absolute ruin. And then where will your supplies come from, I should like to know? Why, I have an idiot only in the next room, of whom I hope to make a good thing, and if you had only come in 5 minutes sooner you would have been heard by her, and I should have been done up here. And why don't she hear you now? Have you cut her throat like you did the woman's by whapping?" "Hush, hush, you devil, why do you allude to that?" "Because I like my beauty, because I know you did it, and whenever I do mention it, the gallows shines out in your face as plain, aye, as plain as this hand, and I like to see you quake and change color, and be ready almost to fall down with your fears." "Ho, ho, I like that. Yes, it's as good to me as a drop of drink, that it is. I only wish your throat was cut, that is all." "I know you do, but you won't try that on upon me." "No, no, you won't try that on. Look at this, my beauty. Do you think I would step into a place of yours without something in the shape of a friend with me?" "Oh, no, no." The lady exhibited the handle and point of the blade of a knife as she spoke, at which Mr. Lupin staggered back, and then in a faltering voice he said, "I will go and see how my portion has worked with the idiot I mentioned. I gave her a good dose of laudanum in a glass of brandy and water." It may be imagined with what feelings Mrs. Oakley heard this interesting little dialogue. It may be imagined, if she had at the bottom of her heart any lingering feelings of right or wrong, how they were likely to be roused up by all this, how her thoughts were likely to fly back to the house she had made wretched and virtually deserted for so long a period of time. And now what was to become of her? Had she not heard Lupin denounced by one who knew him well as a murderer, an allegation which he had not even in the faintest manner denied? Mrs. Oakley went down upon her knees in earnest, and wringing her hands, she cried, "God save me for my poor husband and my child's sake." We will suppose that if any appeals at all reach heaven, that this was one of those that would be sure to get there. Hastily pushing aside with her hands the fragments of the broken glass, Mrs. Oakley flung herself upon the floor at the moment that Lupin with a light in his hand entered the room. "Hilloa," he said. All was still. Mrs. Oakley did not move hand nor foot. She scarcely dared to breathe, for she felt that upon his belief that she had swallowed the narcotic her life rested. When he saw her lying upon the floor, he gave a short laugh, as he said, "I thought she could not resist the brandy and water. The laudanum has done its work quickly truly. It's well that it has, for if it had not, well, well, if I only now had the courage to take a knife to my wife, and get rid of her once and for all, I should do well. Sister Oakley, you will not awaken for many hours, and when you do, you will be by far too much confused to know if you have said all your prayers or not. I shall make a fortune out of these women." Mrs. Oakley felt upon the point of fainting, and if he had but touched her, she was certain that she must have gone off. But he felt so satisfied with the powerful dose of laudanum that he had given her in the brandy and water, that he did not think it worth while in any way further to interfere with her. "Old and ugly too," he muttered as he left the room. Perhaps these last words cut Mrs. Oakley to the soul more quickly than all he had previously said. If she was not from that moment cured of what may in her case be called lupinism, it was a very odd thing truly. The Rev. Gent had been gone more than 10 minutes before Mrs. Oakley gathered courage to look up, and to listen to what was taking place in the next room. Then she found that Lupin was speaking. She was still too much overcome by terror to rise, but she managed to crawl along the floor until she reached the wall between the two rooms. It was a flimsy wall that, composed only of canvas, for the rooms above the chapel had been got up in a very extemporaneous kind of way. Nothing could take place in the way of conversation in the next room that may be distinctly enough heard in the one that Mrs. Oakley was in. As we have said, Lupin was speaking. Mrs. Oakley placed her ear close to the canvas and heard every word that he uttered. "Listen to reason," he said. "Listen to reason, Jane. Of course, I will give you as much money as I can. I do not attempt to deny your claim upon me, and what is to hinder us working together and making a good thing of it? Ah, if I could only persuade you to be a religious woman." "Gammon," said Jane. "I know that very well," said Lupin. "That's the very thing. I know it is gammon as well as you do." "What's that?" Mrs. Chapter Civ. Mrs. Oakley sees a strange sight and thinks there is no place like home. "What's that, eh?" added Lupin. Mrs. Oakley sank flat upon the floor in a moment. She thought that now surely her last hour was come. "I thought I heard a noise." "Did you, Jane?" added Lupin. "I didn't hear anything," said the woman. "It's your conscience, old boy, that makes you hear all sorts of things. You know you are a hard one, and no mistake. You know there ain't exactly your equal in London for a vagabond. But come, hand out the cash, for I ain't particularly fond of your company, nor you of mine, I take it." "It must have been imagination," muttered Lupin, still alluding to the noise he had heard or fancied he had heard. "It must have been imagination, and the wind at night does certainly make odd noises in the chapel at times. No, bother the noises. Give me the money, and let me go. I say, come, be quick about it, or else I shall think of some way of helping myself, and you know when I begin that I'm apt to be rather troublesome." "A little," said Lupin, "just a little. But as I was saying, Jane, you and I together may make a fortune quite easily. You are a clever woman." "Am I really? When did you find that out, you old rogue?" "Really, Jane, it is difficult to talk with you while you are in such a humor. Come, will you take something to drink? Say you will, and you shall have the very best I can get you. Only you must promise to take it in moderation, and not get much the worse for it, Jane. Do you think now that I'm such an idiot as to take a drain of anything in your place?" "No, I am not quite so green as that. Give me some money and I'll fetch something, and as long as I have got my hand on the bottle, where I will take good care to keep it, I shall know that I am safe from you, but not otherwise. You would like to give me a drop of the same stuff you have set the woman in the next room to sleep with, wouldn't you now, my beauty?" "No, Jane, not you. You are not such a fool as to be taken in as she is. Such poor tricks won't do for you, I know well. There is money, and there is an empty bottle. Go and get what you like for yourself, as you wish not what I may happen to have in the place. I will let you in again, so you need not be afraid of that, Jane." "Afraid, afraid? That's a likely thing, truly. I afraid of being kept out by you? No, old boy, if you did keep me out 1 minute longer than my patience lasted, and that would not be very long, I think, I would raise such a racket about your ears that you would wish yourself anywhere but where you are. How did I get in before, when you would have given one of your ears to keep me out? Why, by frightening you, of course, and I'll do it again. Give me hold of the bottle. I afraid of you, truly? A likely thing." The lady left the room with the bottle and half a guinea in her hand, while Lupin, with affected solicitude, lighted her to the door of the chapel, and lingered until he heard her footsteps die away right up the dismal dingy-looking court. While Lupin was lighting his wife down the stairs, Mrs. Oakley found a small slit in the canvas that the division between the two rooms, and she industriously widened it, so that she was enabled to see into the adjoining apartment. She then waited in fear and in trembling the return of Lupin. The arch-hypocrite was not many minutes in making his appearance. He set the candlestick down upon the table with a force that nearly started the candle out of it, and then in a fierce voice he cried, "Done! She is done at last! Ha! Ha! Jane, you are done at last! I kept that bottle for an emergency." It seemed empty, but smeared all around its inner side is a sufficient quantity of a powerful narcotic to affect the very devil himself if he were to drink anything that had been poured into it. You think yourself mighty clever, Jane, but you are done at last. Now what a capital thing it is that I have sent that old fool, Mrs. Oakley, to sleep, for otherwise I should certainly be under the necessity of cutting her throat. Mrs. Oakley could hardly suppress a groan at this intelligence, but the exigencies of her situation pressed strongly upon her, and she did succeed in smothering her feelings and keeping herself quiet. Lupin paced the room anxiously waiting for his wife's return, and in the course of about 5 minutes, a heavy dab of a single knock upon the chapel door announced that fact. He immediately snatched up the candle and ran downstairs to let her in, lest according to her threat she should get to the end of her very limited stock of patience. They came up the stairs together. Jane was speaking. "Brandy," she said. "I have got brandy, and I mean to keep my hand on the bottle, I tell you. Ah, I know you. No one knows you better than I do. You may impose upon everybody but me. You won't find it so very easy a thing to get the better of me. I'll keep my hand on the bottle." "How very suspicious you are," said Lupin. "It's quite distressing." "Is it? Ho, ho. Well, I'll have my drop and then I will go. If you are civil to me whenever I choose to come it will be better for you. But I'm not the sort of person to stand any nonsense, I can assure you." "No, Jane, I never said you were," replied Lupin, "and I hope that tonight will see the beginning as it were of a kind of reconciliation and better feeling between us. I am sure I always thought of you with kindness." By this time they were in the room, and the lady half drew the knife she had before exhibited from the bosom of her dress, as she said, "Look at this, look at this. I distrust you all the more when you talk as you do now, and I tell you that if I have any of your nonsense, I will pretty soon settle you. You mean something, I know, by the twinkle of your eye. I have watched you before, and I know you." "Now, really, this is too bad," said Lupin as he wiped his face with a remarkably old handkerchief. "This is too bad, Jane. If I am kind and civil to you, that don't suit, and if I am rough and rather stern, you fly out at that too. What am I to do? Will nothing please you?" "Bah," said Jane, "hold your nonsense. How much money am I to have when I have finished the brandy? That is the question now. Will 3 guineas be enough, Jane, just for the present occasion?" "No, I must have 5, or if you don't produce them, I'll make you." "You shall have them, Jane. You see how complying I am to you. But won't you give me a drop of the brandy? You don't mean to take it all?" "Yes, I do. It's only half a pint, and what's that? You can drink some of what you said you had in the place. I didn't go out to buy for you. Besides, I won't trust it a moment out of my hands. You would put something in it before I could wink. Really, really, what a strange woman. But won't you have a glass, Jane, to drink it out of? Let me get you a glass now. No, you would put something in that too. Oh, I'm up to your tricks, I am, old boy. You won't get the better of me. Very good brandy it is, too. Ah, strong rather." Jane took a hearty pull at the bottle, so hearty a one that 2/3 of the mixture vanished, and then with her hand on the neck of it, she sat glaring at Lupin, who was on the opposite side of the table, with an awfully satanic grin upon his ugly features. "It has an odd taste." "An odd taste?" cried Lupin. "It's a capital thing that you bought it yourself, and kept your hand over the bottle. I'm very glad of that, old woman, but I feel odd. I ain't the thing. I don't feel very well, Lupin. Ha, ha, ha. I feel as if I were dying. I don't see things very clearly. I'm ill. Oh, what is this? Something is amiss." Mercy, mercy, ha, ha, ha. I shall fall. Help. The room swims round with me. I am poisoned. I know I am. Mercy, help, murder. Oh, spare me. Ha, ha, ha. Lupin rose and went round the table. He caught hold of the wretched woman by the head, and applying his mouth close to her ear, he said, Jane, there was something in the bottle, and I intend to cut your throat. I hope the knife you have got with you has a good edge to it. She tried to scream, but an indistinct, strange, stifled cry only came from her lips. She tried to get up, but her limbs refused their office. The powerful narcotic had taken effect, and she fell forward, her head striking the table heavily, and upsetting the bottle with the remainder of the drugged brandy in it as she did so. Done, said Lupin. Done at last. Oh, how I have watched for such an opportunity as this. How often I have pleased myself with the idea of meeting her in some lonely place when she was off her guard, and killing her, but I never thought that anything could happen half so lucky as this. Let me think. I am quite alone in this building, or as good as alone, for Mrs. Oakley sleeps soundly. I can easily drag the dead body downstairs and place it in one of the vaults underneath the chapel, to which I have the key. I will wrench open some coffin if that be all, and cram her in on the top of the dead there previously. Ah, that will do, and then I defy any circumstances to find me out. How safe I mean a death this will be, to be sure. How very, very safe. Mrs. Oakley shook in every limb, but she kept her eyes steadfastly fixed at the small hole in the canvas, through which she could see into the room, and by a horrible species of fascination, she felt that if she had ever so much wished to do so, she could not then have withdrawn it. No, she was as it were condemned as a fiat of destiny, as a punishment for her weak and criminal credulity regarding that man, to be a witness to the dreadful deed he proposed committing, within the sphere of her observation. It was dreadful, it was truly horrible, but it was not now by any means to be avoided. Lupin disappeared for a few seconds into a room, where he usually himself slept. From there he returned with a wash-hand basin in his hand, which he placed upon the floor. He then fumbled about the clothing of his wife until he found the knife that she had twice so threateningly exhibited to him. He held it up to the light and narrowly scrutinized it. It will do, I think, he said. He tried its keenness upon the edge of the sole of his shoe, and he was satisfied that it had been well prepared for mischief. It will do well, he said. Well, nothing can be better. From this night I shall be free from the fears that have haunted me night and day for so long. This woman is the only person in all London who really knows me, and who has it in her power to destroy all my prospects. When she is gone, I shall be perfectly easy and safe, and surely never was such a deed as this done with so much positive safety. Mrs. Oakley felt sickened at what she saw, but still she looked upon it with that same species of horrible fascination which it is said, and said truly, too, prevents the victim of a serpent's glittering eye from escaping the jaws of the destroyer. She saw it all. She did not move. She did not scream. She did not weep, but as if frozen to the spot, she, with a statuesque calmness, looked upon that most horrible scene of blood. She was the witness appointed by heaven to see it done, and she could not escape her mission. Lupin twined his left hand in the hair at the back of the head of the wretched woman, and then he held her head over the wash-hand basin. There was a bright flash of the knife, and then a gushing, gurgling sound, and blood poured into the basin, hot, hissing, and frothing. The light fell upon the face of Lupin, and at that time so changed was it, that Mrs. Oakley could not have recognized it, and, but that she knew from the antecedents that it was no other than he, she may have doubted if some devil had not risen up through the floor to do the deed of blood. He dropped the knife to the floor. Lupin drugs his wife, and then cuts her throat. Lupin drugs his wife, and then cuts her throat. The murdered woman made a faint movement with her arms, and then all was over. The blood still rolled forth and filled the wash-hand basin. Lupin caught the cover from the table, throwing everything that was upon it to the floor, and wrapped it many times round the head, face, and neck of his victim. "It is done," he said. "It is done." He still held the body by the hair of the head, and dragging it along the floor, he dropped it near the door opening onto the staircase. He then went to a cupboard in the room, and finding a bottle, he plunged the neck of it into his mouth, and drank deeply. The draught was ardent spirit, but it had no more effect upon him at that moment than as though it had been so much water from a spring. That is to say, it had no intoxicating effect. It may have stilled some of the emotions of dread and horror, which his own crime must have called up from the bottom evening of such a heart as his. He was human, and he could not be utterly callous. Leaning against the cupboard door for a few seconds, he gasped out, "Yes, it is done. It is quite done, and now for the worst. Now for the body, and the vaults, and the dead. Can I do it? Can I do it? I must. Yes, I must. There is no safety for me if I do not. I shall come else to the scaffold. I think already that I see the hooting crowd, the rope, and the crossbeam. Now they hold my arms. Now they tell me to call upon God for mercy to my wretched blood-stained soul. Now the mob shouts. The hangman touches me. I feel the rope about my neck. They draw the cap over my face, and so shut out the world from me forever." Chapter CV. Mrs. Oakley escapes and takes a different view of things in general. Mrs. Oakley nearly fainted herself at this juncture, but she felt that her life was in jeopardy, and by a strong mental effort, such as she could hardly have supposed herself capable of making, she sustained herself, and preserved her senses. Lupin lay for some minutes quite insensible upon the floor, but he did not lie long enough for Mrs. Oakley to take advantage of his temporary swoon and leave the place. Had she perhaps been very prompt and resolute and self-possessed, she may have done so, but under the whole of the circumstances, it was not to be supposed that such could be her state of mind, so the slight opportunity, for, after all, it was only a slight one, if one at all, was let slip by her. She was just beginning to ask herself if there was a chance of getting away before Lupin should recover, when he uttered a hideous groan, and moved slightly. After these indications of recovery, Mrs. Oakley was afraid to move, and certainly the slightest indication of her being otherwise than in the state of insensibility which Lupin believed to be her condition, there is very little doubt it would have been the signal for her death. The man who commits a murder for the attainment of any object of importance to him will not scruple to commit another to hide the first deed from the eyes of the world. And now Lupin slowly rose to a sitting posture and glared around him for a few moments in silence. Then he spoke. "What is this?" he said. "What is all this? What is the meaning of all this? Blood, blood. Is this blood upon my hands? No, no. Yes, it is, it is. Ah, I recollect." He held his blood-stained hands to his eyes for a few moments, and then, as he withdrew them, he slowly turned his eyes to where the body lay. With a shudder he dragged himself along the floor further off from it, gasping out as he did so, "Off, off, horrible object, off, off." His distempered imagination, no doubt, pictured the body as following him. Is there not, truly, a prompt retribution in this world? Off, off, I say. No further. Not dead? Not dead yet? How much blood have you in you now to shed? Off, off. He reached the wall. He could get no further, and thus pursued still by the same wild, insane idea, he sprung to his feet, and uttering a loud cry, he caught up a chair and held it out at arm's length before him, shouting, "Keep away, keep away, keep off, I say. I did not do it. Who shall say I did it? Who saw me do it?" He slowly dropped the chair, and then in a more composed voice he said, "Hush, hush. I am mad to raise these cries. They will alarm the court. I am mad, mad." Mrs. Oakley had hoped that his ravings would reach some other ears than hers, and that his apprehension, with the bleeding witness of his crime close at hand, would follow as a thing of course, and then how gladly would she have flown from her place of concealment, and cried out, "He did it! I saw him! That is the man!" But such was not the case. Either he really did not call out loud enough to make himself heard, or the inhabitants of the court were too much accustomed to all sorts of sounds to pay any attention evening to the ravings of a murderer. No one came, no one evening knocked at the chapel door to know if anything was amiss, and when she saw him calm, and in a measure self-possessed again, her heart died within her. "Murder, murder," he said, "I have done murder. Yes, I have steeped my hands in blood, again, again. It is not the first time, but one does not become familiar with murder. I did not feel as I feel now when I took a life before. Oh, horror, horror!" He shook, but soon again recovered himself. The vaults," he said. "They will hide the dead. Who will look for this woman? What friends has she? Is there one in all the world who cares if she be alive or dead? Not one. Is there one who will stir 6 steps to find out what has become of her? Not one." Again he solaced himself with a draught of brandy, and then he set about making his preparations for disposing of the dead body of his slaughtered victim. From a drawer in the room he took a large sheet, and spread it upon the floor. Then he kicked and pushed the dead body with his feet onto it, and then he deliberately rolled it up round and round in the sheet, and at each fold feeling that it was further removed from his sight, he seemed to breathe more and more freely. He spoke in something like his old tones. "That will do, that will do. The vaults will be the place." Was there ever such a cunning place for murder to be done in as a chapel, with its ready receptacles of the dead beneath it? There let her rot. She will never come up in judgment against me from there. It is done now, the deed that I often thought of doing, and yet never had the courage, nor the opportunity at the same time, to accomplish until tonight. The vaults, the vaults. Aye, the vaults. He lit a lantern, that he took from the cupboard, and then he opened the door that communicated with the staircase terminating in the chapel. He listened as though he fancied that someone may be below listening to the deed of blood above. "All is still," he muttered, "so very still. It is providential. It is the will of heaven that this woman should die tonight, and after all I am but the instrument of its decrees, nothing more. That is comforting." He now dragged the body to the door he had opened, but he did not carry it. When he got it there he overbalanced it and let it fall down. Mrs. Oakley, evening from where she was, heard the horrible smash with which it reached the bottom of the stairs. Lupin followed with the lantern, and now it would seem as if another opportunity had presented itself to Mrs. Oakley to escape. The staircase down which Lupin had gone communicated with the chapel. It was another flight that led to the ordinary door through which any one passed who may be coming to the private part of the house. That staircase, of course, she expected to reach without going through the room in which the murder was committed, as her room, and the adjoining one both opened upon its landing as well as into each other. Mrs. Oakley slowly rose from her knees. "God help us," she said, "and give me strength to make an attempt to leave this frightful place. There will surely be time while Lupin is in the vaults. Oh, yes, there will surely be time." She tottered along with as little strength as though she had been lying for weeks upon a bed of sickness. So completely had she been unnerved by what she had seen. She touched the handle of the door evening that was support, and then she turned it. The door did not open. It was locked. Mrs. Oakley felt as if at that moment all her chance of escape was gone. She felt as though she were given over by Providence to Lupin to be murdered. Why had he locked the door, but that if by any rare chance she should awaken from the lethargic sleep into which he supposed her to be plunged, she should have no outlet but through the room in which he would be. But he was not there now, and the door of communication between her room and that in which the murder had been done may not be fast. To try it was the work now of a moment. Mrs. Oakley felt a little more self-possessed with the knowledge that Lupin was not close at hand, and she opened the door. It yielded readily enough to her touch. She was in the room of murder, in the very atmosphere of blood. She glanced around her, and although she had seen all through the opening in the canvas partition, Yet she was horrified to find herself closer to the spot upon which the fearful deed had been done. Lupin, when he had lit his lantern with which to go to the vaults, had not extinguished the ordinary light that burnt in his room. That had a long spectral-looking wick, but it gave sufficient light to enable Mrs. Oakley to see the blood upon the floor. She sickened at the sight, but if she were to escape, it must be done at once. Lupin would not be likely to linger longer by one brief moment in the vaults than was absolutely necessary, and he may return before she had effected her purpose yet. She flew to the door of his room, which opened onto the landing. She made an effort to open it. Alas! It was in vain. It, too, was locked, and the key was gone. "I am a prisoner," said Mrs. Oakley, as she clasped her hands. "I am a prisoner to this dreadful man." For some few moments now she felt completely overwhelmed by this misfortune. The only outlet from the room that was not fast was that which Lupin himself had taken, and which led to the chapel. Should she venture that way or not? That was the question. Could she resolve upon staying where she was and trusting to an escape in the morning? No, no, she told herself that would be too horrible. She would have, then, to look at Lupin in the face and to talk to him. No, 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 I cannot do that, she said. I will go down the staircase that he has gone down. I will pass through the chapel. I will try to open the chapel door, and then I will rush out with the cry of murder upon my lips. It was a trembling, anxious thing to follow the murderer and his victim down that staircase, but having found all other mode of egress denied to her, Mrs. Oakley attempted it. Slowly she went, step by step, and soon she paused to listen for any sound that should be indicative of Lupin's whereabouts, but she heard nothing. "He must be deep beneath the chapel," she said, "among the vaults. That is where he must be. I shall be safe if I hasten now. Oh, so safe, quite safe." She did hasten, and another moment brought her to the foot of the stairs. A door in the chapel wall terminated them. That was the door against which Mrs. Oakley had heard the dead body strike with such a frightful crash when Lupin had cast it down the stairs. It was swinging open now. Another moment and she was in the chapel. From out of the aperture, occasioned by the lifting up of a large square trapdoor in the center of the chapel floor, there came a faint stream of light. Mrs. Oakley knew that that trapdoor led to the vaults. She knew that a flight of steps was immediately beneath it which lead to the loathsome receptacles of the dead, where the pious members of Mr. Lupin's flock were laid, when they and this world had bidden each other adieu. She knew that he derived no despicable revenue from letting such lodgings to the dead, and he was down there with his victim, the first person that he ever permitted to lie there without a fee. Mrs. Oakley, to reach the chapel door, must needs pass quite close to the open trapdoor, and as she neared it, a terrible curiosity took possession of her. It was to see what Lupin was doing below. It was to ascertain in what way he disposed of his victim's body. She thought that she ought to see that. She thought, then, that she could tell all, and bring the hounds of justice to the very spot where the murdered woman lay. She paused for a moment upon the brink of the trap, and then, by an impulse that at the moment seemed and was irresistible, she began the descent among the vaults. These vaults were quite dignified by being so called. They were nothing but cellars, nothing in the world but damp, gloomy cellars, and Lupin made as much of them as he did of the chapel overhead. The corpses lay there thick and threefold, a ghostly company, and yet Lupin had many underground lodgings to let. What cared he, if the fumes from the dead came up, and made havoc upon hot Sundays among the living? What cared he what mischief the charnel house beneath the planks did to the old and to the young? His own constitution, he had a strong impression, could be fortified by copious libations of brandy. Probably he was wrong in his practice, but he had faith in his remedy, and that was a great thing, a very great thing, truly. Mrs. Oakley slowly crept down the steps leading to the vaults. She was guided by the faint light of Lupin's lantern, which was she knew not where. Twice she paused to listen if he were coming, as in such a case she would have flown back upon the wings of terror, but she heard nothing, and she passed onward. 12 steps led to the lowest depth upon which the vaults were situated. Then there was a kind of passage, upon which were flagstones very roughly and clumsily laid down. Right and left of this passage the vaults were. It wound completely round the chapel, but she had not to go very far to ascertain where Lupin was at work. Chapter CVI. Mr. Lupin finds himself in an awkward predicament. Mrs. Oakley peeped into the vault, but she held herself in readiness to fly at a moment's notice, and then she thought she could easily hide among the pews in the chapel. Nothing, she thought, could be very well easier than such a course. Could she not hide in the very pew that she had for a long time called her own? And then by watching Lupin, she should have the advantage of seeing in a moment when he had done his work, and there would then be little trouble in eluding him. On tiptoe, Mrs. Oakley advanced to the half-opened door of the vault and peeped in upon the man who thought himself so very safe. The eye of heaven, he must have thought, saw him, but he would have staked his life immediately upon the fact that no human observation was bent upon his actions, and yet there was someone for whom he entertained the greatest contempt, one whom he would have defied to injure him, gathering up evidence to hang him. Go on, Lupin, bury your victim, but don't think yourself so very safe just yet. It is an old saying that murder will out. Do you think that yours will prove the exception? From a recess in the wall Lupin had dragged a coffin. It was an old one and rather rotten, so that by the aid of a small crowbar that he had there, what use did Lupin find for a crowbar in the vaults beneath his chapel? Was it to rip open the coffins and rob evening the dead? Well, by the aid of this crowbar he soon forced open the lid of the coffin. He stood in it then and stamped down the remains with his feet to make room for the murdered body. Mr. Lupin crushes the corpse to make room for his murdered wife. Mr. Lupin crushes the corpse to make room for his murdered wife. Mrs. Oakley sickened at this. She had not quite expected to see such a horror as that. It appeared to her at the moment to be worse than the murder above stairs. She really felt quite faint as she saw him. When he had flattened the nearly decayed body in the coffin as much as he could, he lifted the corpse of his victim from the floor of the vault. It was still closely enveloped in the large sheet, although at one part the blood had begun to make its way through all the folds upon folds of that wrapper, and he threw it into the coffin. It more than filled it. Poor Mrs. Oakley shut her eyes. She knew what he was going to do. She knew it from what he had done, and she saw it in his eyes. He was of course going to tread down the dead body of her he had murdered, in the same way that he had already trodden down the half-decomposed one in the coffin. Strange companionship! How little the very respectable defunct, who had been expensively placed in one of the vaults, could have imagined that it was a female, that she should be trodden down as flat as any pancake, to make room for the Reverend Josiah Lupin's murdered wife. To what base uses may we come as last? Mrs. Oakley heard him treading and stamping, and then she opened her eyes, and she saw him fitting on the lid of the coffin again. He had made it hold its double burthen, and now she had surely seen all that she came to see, and yet with a frightful fascination she lingered as though spellbound to the spot. She thought that she had plenty of time. Of course Lupin would put the coffin into its recess again, and that would take him some time. It would, with its additional weight, certainly be no easy task, but he set about it, and it is astonishing what Herculean labors people will perform when their necks are to answer for any delay or dereliction of the duty. Lupin dragged the coffin to its receptacle on a low shelf, and fairly hitched one end of it in the aperture made for its reception. By the assistance of the lever he pushed it fairly in, and then he paused and wiped his brow. "It is done," he said. He leaned heavily against the damp wall. "It is done, it is done. This will be one of the undiscovered murders that are done in London. I am safe now. Nobody will miss her, nobody will look for her, nobody will dream that this vault can possibly conceal such a crime, and now that the terror of it, and the horror of doing it, is all over. I feel like a new man, and am much rejoiced. Rejoiced, thought Mrs. Oakley with a shudder. She was the torment of my life, added Lupin. I knew no peace while she lived. Success had no charm for me. Go where I would, think of what I would, do what I would. I always had the dread of that woman before my eyes, but now I'm rid of her. He took up his lantern from the floor of the vault. Now it was time for Mrs. Oakley to fly. She turned and hastily ran up the staircase of the vault. The idea took possession, and it was after all only a fancy, that Lupin was pursuing her with the crowbar in his hand. But how it urged her on, what wings it gave her, but confused her the while, so that instead of hurrying to the chapel door, and making a bold effort to open it as she had meant to do, she only sought the door in the wall, and the staircase down which she had come to the chapel, nor did she pause until she found herself in the murder room. Then, with a heart beating so wildly that she was fain to lay her hands upon it in the hope of stopping its maddening pulsation, she stopped to listen. It was only fancy. It was a delusion. No, Lupin was pursuing her from the vaults. Thank heaven, she said. Thank heaven. But oh, why am I here? Why have I come here again, instead of making my escape by the chapel door? This is a fatal error. Oh, heaven save me. Is there yet time? Does he linger yet sufficiently long in the vaults to enable me to take refuge among the pews? These were questions which the stillness in the chapel below seemed to answer in the affirmative, and once more Mrs. Oakley approached the staircase to descend it. She got 3 steps down the stairs, and then she heard a footstep below. It was too late. Lupin was coming up. Yes, it was too late. He approached with a heavy and regular footfall. That heaviness and regularity were sufficient evidences that he had not heard her, and had no suspicion that she nor any one else had been a witness to his crime. So far she was comparatively safe, but the blessed chance of escape without any meeting with him was gone. Up he came. Mrs. Oakley retreated step by step as he advanced. She passed into the chamber, which may for distinction's sake be called her own room, and there she cast herself upon the couch, and closed her eyes shudderingly. She had a presentiment that Lupin would come to look at her to see that she still slumbered. She was right. He had not been in the room where the deed of blood had been committed many minutes, when he opened the door of communication between the 2 apartments, and came in not with the lantern, but with the candle he had left burning upon the table. He did not come above 3 steps into the room, and then he spoke. Sister Oakley, it is time to pray. Mrs. Oakley moved not, spoke not. Sister Oakley, will you be so good as to rise and go to the corner of the next street on a little errand for me? How tempting this was! But Mrs. Oakley had the discretion to imagine the wolf in the sheep's clothing now. She saw in all this only a clear mode of ascertaining if she were awake or not, and she would not speak nor move. This was, in truth, a wise policy upon the part of Mrs. Oakley. That it was so became abundantly apparent when Lupin spoke again. All is right, he said. The opiate has done its work bravely. I feel easy now, and yet I don't know how I came for a moment to feel otherwise, or to imagine for a moment there was danger from this woman. If I only had any proof that there was, I would soon put it beyond her power to be mischievous. But no, she has slept soundly and knows nothing. It required, truly, no ordinary nerve during this speech of Lupin's for Mrs. Oakley to preserve the stillness of apparent deep sleep, but we none of us know what we can do until we are put to it. After all, what a just punishment to Mrs. Oakley was all that she was now going through. She had had more faith in that bold, bad mountebank of a parson than in heaven itself, and she was justly punished. Having then made this trial of her sleeping state, Mr. Lupin retired with the candle again, quite satisfied. At least one would have thought so, and as he had talked of the amazing ease of mind he felt now that he had murdered his wife, it was rather surprising that he did not go to bed and sleep serenely instead of pacing his room to and fro for more than 4 hours, mumbling disjointed words and sentences to himself as he did so, for Mrs. Oakley heard him. but she did not dare to move. Suddenly he flung open the door between the two rooms, and in a startling voice he cried, "Fire! Fire!" It was truly a wonder that upon this Mrs. Oakley did not jump up. It sounded so very alarming, but it was not to be, and with a presence of mind that surely was not all her own, she yet remained profoundly still. "Fool that I am," muttered Lupin, "to be continually assailed by dread of this woman, when everything assures me that she has been in a sound sleep caused by a powerful narcotic during the whole night. But the morning is now near at hand, and she will soon awaken. I have already got what money I can from her, and I must give her breakfast and then send her off. It would be useless to kill her." The manner in which Lupin pronounced these last words was very alarming, for it implied rather that he was asking himself the question whether it would be useless to kill her or not, than the expression of a decided opinion. But still Mrs. Oakley moved not. Lupin, suddenly, as though he had quite made up his mind not to trouble himself about her any more, slammed to the door of communication between the two rooms. Mrs. Oakley breathed freely again, that is, comparatively freely, and yet what a shocking, agonizing idea it was, that she may have to breakfast with that dreadful man. What should she say to him? How should she look at him? The dawn was coming, and she shook with apprehension to find that such was the fact, and Lupin had said that she would soon awaken, so, effect to awaken she must, in order to keep up the delusion. But how should she manage then to deceive the suspicious vigilance of such a man? But all this had to be encountered. How was it to be avoided? She could do nothing but arm herself with such fortitude as she could call to her aid. Oh, how she wished herself in her own parlor behind the shop, and upon her knees asking the pardon of her husband for all that she had done, and for all that she had not done. What would she have not given evening to have seen the honest face of Big Ben, the beefeater? The light of the coming day grew each moment stronger, and at length Mrs. Oakley thought it would be prudent to seem to wake up, and calling out, "Mr. Lupin, Mr. Lupin," she rose from the couch. Lupin opened the door of communication between the two rooms, and glared at her. "Did you call, Sister Oakley?" "Yes, reverend sir. Surely I have been sleeping, and have forgotten some of the prayers." "No, truly, Sister Oakley, I have watched for you, and I can assure you that you will enter into the kingdom always, provided that you are regular in your contributions to the chapel, for at the last that of a surety will be demanded to be known of you." "Sister Oakley, I have been thinking of that, Brother Lupin," said Mrs. Oakley, "and this day week I will manage to bring £2. Only 2? I will make it 3, if I can, Brother Oakley, but my head feels quite confused and giddy. It is very strange." "Ah," whispered Lupin to himself, "that is the natural effect of the narcotic. It has worked well." Then he said aloud, "Sister Oakley, I pray you to walk into this room, and I will provide for you what the profane world call the breakfast, for although food for the soul is in all way preferable to food for the body, yet we must not always neglect our earthly tabernacle." "I am much obliged to you," said Mrs. Oakley. Chapter CV. Mrs. Oakley dissembles. With trembling steps, Mrs. Oakley followed Lupin, the murderer, into his own room. Of course, she was resolved to see nothing, and to make no remark that could in any way direct the attention of Lupin more closely to her. And oh, how she panted for some opportunity of rushing into the street and crying aloud to the passers-by that the pious hypocrite was a murderer. But as yet she felt that her life depended upon the manner in which she played her part. "Truly, Sister Oakley," said Lupin, "I hope you passed a quiet and peaceful night." "Amen. Very," replied Mrs. Oakley. "Ah, I wish I could say as much, Sister Oakley." "And can you not?" "Alas, no, I had some dreams, some very bad dreams, but Satan always will be doing something, you know, sister. Do you know I dreamt of a murder?" As he uttered these words, no Grand Inquisitor could have looked more keenly into the eyes of a victim than did Mr. Lupin into the face of Mrs. Oakley, but she divined his motive. She felt that he was trying her. but she had evening in such a moment sufficient presence of mind to keep her eyes steadily upon his face, and to say with seeming unconcern, "Murder, did you say, Mr. Lupin?" "Yes, I did say murder, and you," he pointed at her with his finger, but finding that she only looked surprised, rather, he added, "And you are one of the elect, I rejoice to say, Sister Oakley." "Amen. It is a capital thing to be saved." "It is, truly, Mr. Lupin. Well, well, let us have the carnal meal, called breakfast. I will proceed, God willing, to the corner of the court, and purchase 2 eggs, Mrs. Oakley, if it be pleasing to you." "Anything you like, Mr. Lupin. I have but a poor appetite in the morning, always." Mr. Lupin put on his hat, and after slowly turning round and casting an anxious glance upon the room and every object within, to assure himself that he had left no evidences of his crime behind him, he slowly left to get the eggs. Mrs. Oakley heard him descend the stairs, and she heard the door close behind him. Then she asked herself if that were really and truly an opportunity of escape that she dared attempt to avail herself of, or if it were only one in seeming, and that if she were upon its provocation to attempt to leave the place, she would only be confirming the slight suspicions that may be in the mind of Lupin concerning her privity to his deed of blood. He had talked of only going to the corner of the court, and how did she know that he had evening gone so far? May not the message about the eggs be merely a pretended one, to see what she would do? This was a consideration that kept her, tremblingly, where she was. About 5 minutes elapsed, and then she heard a knock at the door below. Who could that be? Mr. Lupin had a key with which he always let himself in, so it could not be he. What was she to think? What was she to do? Suddenly then she heard the door opened, and then after a few moments' delay some footsteps sounded upon the stairs, but it was very unlike that of Lupin, the murderer. The delightful thought came over the imagination of Mrs. Oakley that someone was coming to whom she may at once make an avowal of all she knew of Lupin's guilt, and who may be able to protect her from the vengeance of the murderer. She rose and peeped through the keyhole. She saw Lupin coming up the stairs. He was making quite a laborious effort to tread differently to what was usual with him, and from that moment Mrs. Oakley felt that she was to be subjected to some extraordinary trial of her self-possession. She crept back to her seat and waited in terror. In the course of a few moments, Lupin, after treading with a heavy thump upon every stair, instead of gliding up in his usual manner, reaching the door at which he tapped, and then in an assumed voice, which if she, Mrs. Oakley, had not known he was there, would have deceived her, he said, "Hello, who's at home? Who's there?" Said Mrs. Oakley. "It's John Smith," cried Lupin. "I am an officer of the police. Has anybody anything to say to me here? They tell me in the court that some odd noises were heard in the night." "I don't know anything about it," said Mrs. Oakley, "but if you will come in and wait until Mr. Lupin comes in, he may like to see you." "Oh, no, 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 it's no matter. Good morning, ma'am." Downstairs went Lupin, thinking he had acted the officer to perfection, and making no doubt in the world but that he had thoroughly deceived Mrs. Oakley, who he was now quite satisfied knew absolutely nothing about the murder. In the course of a couple of minutes, Mr. Lupin in his own character came gliding in. "I am afraid I have kept you waiting, Sister Oakley." "Oh, not at all, but there has been a man there who says his name is Smith, and I met him. It is all right. He heard something going on in the next house, I suppose, and mistook it for this. Pray cook the eggs to your liking, Sister Oakley, and help yourself to anything. Don't be particular, Sister Oakley, but make yourself at home." "I will, Reverend Sir, I will." Mrs. Oakley was really playing her part very well, but she fancied each moment that the murderer would see something in her manner to give him a suspicion that she knew too much for his safety. She was wrong, though, for upon the contrary, Mr. Lupin felt quite satisfied that the secret of his guilt was confined to his own breast. "I pray you, Sister Oakley," he said, to eat freely of my humble fare, and after breakfast we will have a prayer. It seemed to Mrs. Oakley, now, that she had awakened to a sense of the awful hypocrisy of Mr. Lupin, something very horrible for him to talk of having a prayer, but she took care not to show what she felt in that particular. "How kind and good of you," she said. "I, truly, Sister Oakley, I am kind and good, and yet there are envious folks in the world, who I dare say would not hesitate to give evening me a bad name. Impossible, surely. I would it were, my dear Sister Oakley, I would it were impossible. It seems to me, Reverend Sir, as though it would not be in the power of poor human nature to praise you too much. But it is time that I should think of going home now, if you please." "Well, sister, if you must go home among the heathens and the Philistines, I will not hinder you, but with the hope of seeing you soon again, I will now offer up a prayer." It was truly sickening evening to Mrs. Oakley, whose feelings the reader will think could not be very fine, to see such an arch hypocrite offering up a prayer to that deity whom he must so bitterly have offended by his awful crimes. But Mr. Lupin cut the prayer tolerably short, and then giving to Mrs. Oakley what he called the kiss of peace, and to which, loathsome as it was from him, she felt herself forced to submit, he bade her good day. And now, truly, she began to entertain a sanguine hope that she would be released from his company, and she should soon be in a condition to denounce him to justice for the awful crime which she had seen him commit. She could not possibly avoid a slight feeling of satisfaction to appear upon her face. "You seem pleased," said Lupin. "I am, Reverend Sir. May I ask what at? Ah, how can I be otherwise than delighted, when I am assured by such a saint upon earth as yourself that I am one of the elect?" This was an answer with which, whether it was satisfactory or not, Mr. Lupin was, as it were, compelled to put up with, but taking up his hat, he said, "Truly, Sister Oakley, it will become me to see you a part of the way home." Mrs. Oakley expressed her satisfaction with the holy man's company, and they both descended the stairs together. She felt, however, an exquisite pang of alarm upon finding that Lupin led her down the staircase that led to the chapel, and not down the one which would have conducted them to the ordinary door of exit from the domestic portion of the building. But evening with all the dread upon her soul, that he may be meditating some awful act in the chapel, she felt that she must assume a calmness though she felt it not. "Why, this leads to the chapel," she said. She thought it would sound more natural for her to make that remark than to say nothing about it. "Yes, sister, it does, and here is the trapdoor that conducts to the vaults." He suddenly turned upon her, and clutched her by the arm, as he spoke. Poor Mrs. Oakley then really thought that her last hour was come, and that all along in pretending to have no suspicion of her, he was only dissembling. It was a mercy she did not at that terrible moment commit herself in some way. Surely heaven supported her, for she did not. "Reverend Sir," she said, "what mean you?" "What mean I? I mean, will you descend to the vaults with me, and pray?" "Yes, if you wish it." "Nothing, nothing," muttered Lupin. "What a fool I am. I may have been well convinced long ago, and yet I cannot forbear new trials. All is safe, all is safe. This way, Sister Oakley, this way. I will only see you to the corner of your own street." "Many thanks." They both emerged from the chapel. Lupin slammed the door after him, and arm in arm they walked up the court together. Poor Mrs. Oakley felt that to be the most trying moment of all for her nerves. While she had much to do, while she was alone with Lupin in the domestic portion of the chapel, and while she knew that the least slip of the tongue, or the least want of control over her feelings may be her death, she conducted herself gallantly. But now, when she was fairly in the open air, now that she was in comparative safety, her feelings almost got the better of her. It was only by a powerful effort that she could at all control them. She felt that by suddenly quitting the arm of Lupin, and making a rush for it, she may escape him. But then she did not want him to escape the consequences of his crime, for Mrs. Oakley had a woman's sympathy with the fate evening of the not very respectable Mrs. Lupin. Besides, with all the vindictive hate that he may be supposed to feel upon finding that his guilt was known, he may yet pursue her, and before she could find aid, kill her. I must still dissemble, she thought, and speak this most monstrous villain fairly. Quite a charming morning, reverend sir, she said. Very, said Lupin. I really am afraid that I am sadly intruding upon your time by letting you come with me. Oh, no, no, no. He seemed to be getting very thoughtful, and Mrs. Oakley was proportionably more and more upon her guard, for she felt convinced that if he really thought she knew anything of his guilt he would kill her. Now they emerged from the court, but it was yet rather an early hour in the morning, and but very few passengers were in the streets. The only person that was tolerably close to them was an elderly woman, and Mrs. Oakley, much as she panted for an opportunity of separating herself from Lupin, felt that the time to do so had not yet come. On they went in the direction of Mrs. Oakley's house, that house that she now began to feel she had so much neglected, to look after what, in the language of Scripture, may truly have been termed strange idols, that home which she now looked to as a haven of safety from the terror of death itself. How silent you are, sister, said Lupin. Yes, I was thinking. Of what? He said, fiercely. Of how much I should be able to take from Mr. Oakley's till to bring to you this day week. Oh, you may depend, reverend sir, it shall be as much as possible. Of course I must be cautious, though. Oh, yes, yes. They had now reached within a few paces of the corner of the street, and yet Mrs. Oakley had seen no one upon whom, from their appearance, she thought she could rely to call to for aid against the murderer. Suddenly then round the corner, there came a bulky form. The heavy tread of someone of unusual weight sounded upon the street pavement. Big Ben, the beefeater, with his arms behind him, and in a very thoughtful mood, came pacing slowly along. As Mrs. Oakley said afterwards, her heart, at that moment, was in her mouth. She could not dissemble an instant longer with Lupin, but with a loud shriek that echoed far and wide in the streets, she suddenly sprang from him, crying, Ben, Ben, dear strong Ben, seize this man. He is a murderer. D.N. Done at last, cried Lupin. He turned to fly, but treading upon a piece of cabbage leaf that was upon the pavement, down he fell. Easy does it, said Ben, and he flung himself upon the top of Lupin, spreading out his arms and legs, and holding him by sheer weight as firmly to the pavement as though he had been nailed there. Help, 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 murder, help, shouted Mrs. Oakley. Murder, murder, murder. People began to flock to them from all parts. Lupin succeeded in getting a knife from his pocket, but Mrs. Chapter CVI returns to Mrs. Lovett and shows how she got out of the river. Our readers have been aware for a long time past that Mrs. Lovett was no common, everyday sort of woman, and what we are about to relate concerning her will be further proof that way tending, if it should be by any skeptical person in any way required. To all appearance, Todd had seen the last of her on the river, but Todd was born to be deceived, and at the time he should have recollected an old adage, to the effect that folks who are born to be hanged are very seldom drowned. We shall see. Mrs. Lovett did go down, but as fortune and the amazingly strong current of the river would have it, she came up again, with a barge between her and Todd, and involuntarily laying hold of the side of the barge, there she remained, too exhausted to cry out, until Todd was far off. She was seen at last by a man who was at the window of a public house, and in the course of 10 minutes after Todd had began to congratulate himself upon the demise of Mrs. Lovett, she was in a warm bed at the public house, and her clothes drying at the kitchen fire. She had scarcely been for a moment at all insensible, and as she lay in bed she had a most accurate perception of all that happened. The reader may suppose that the feelings of Mrs. Lovett toward Sweeney Todd were by no means ameliorated by the morning's proceedings, and yet how calculating she was in her rage, as the effects of her submersion wore off, and her ordinary strength came back to her. Her mind became intently fixed upon but one object, and that was how to be completely and bitterly revenged upon Todd. "He shall hang," she said. "He shall hang, but I must think of the means, while I likewise take care to avoid the gallows myself. But he shall hang, let the consequences be what they may." The landlady of the public house was very assiduous in her attention to Mrs. Lovett, and while she was thus thinking of her revenge upon Todd, the landlady, made her appearance in the room with a steaming glass of mulled and spiced wine. "I hope you are better," she said, "and if you will give me the name and address of your friends, I will send to them at once." "Friends," said Mrs. Lovett. "How came you to think that I had any friends?" "Well, I hardly thought you were without. Don't most folks have friends of some sort or another?" "Ah, I had forgotten. I have a friend with me, a very dear friend, who will not forsake me. I have more of them at home, for I have a home." "Oh," thought the landlady, "she is raving." "Bring me my stays," said Mrs. Lovett. The stays, which, together with the rest of her apparel, now had got quite dry, was brought to her, and in a little secret pocket in them Mrs. Lovett dived with her 2 fingers and found a damp 5-pound note. "Take that," she said, "for your trouble. I do not want any change. Only be so good now as to help me to dress and tell me what the time is." "3 o'clock," said the landlady, "and I'm sure you can't think how pleased I am that you are better. Do you really think you are strong enough to go home yet?" "Yes. What I have to do at home will lend me strength, if I wanted it." Mrs. Lovett was soon dressed, and at her request a coach was sent for, and in the course of half an hour from the time that the landlady had asked her if she should send for her friends, she, Mrs. Lovett, was bowling along the dense thoroughfares of the city to her home. What pen could describe the dark and malignant thoughts that filled her brain as she proceeded? What language would be strong enough to depict the storm of passion that raged in the bosom of that imperious woman? It must suffice that she made herself a solemn promise of vengeance against Todd, let the risk or the actual consequences to herself be what they may. If with perfect safety to herself she could be revenged upon him, of course she would, but she resolved not to hesitate, even if it involved a self-sacrifice. So full of the very agony of rage was she. "He shall hang, he shall hang," such were the words she uttered as the lumbering hackney coach reached Fleet Street. For all she knew to the contrary, Todd may be looking from his door, for that he had gone home in great triumph at the thought of having got rid of her she did not doubt, and so, as it was just then a great object with her to keep him in that pleasant delusion, she got quite down among the straw at the bottom of the hackney coach. But she kept her eyes, those bright metallic-looking eyes, which, with a questionable taste, had been so much admired by the lawyers' clerks of the Temple and Lincoln's Inn, she kept her eyes just on the edge of the coach window, so that she may have a passing glance at Todd's shop. Todd was at the door. How pleased and self-satisfied he looked. He was rubbing his huge hands slowly together, and a grim smile was on his horrible features. Mrs. Lovett clenched her hands until her nails made marks in the palms of them that did not come out for hours, and in a harsh, growling voice, she said, "Ah, grin on, fiend, your hours from now shall be numbered. You shall hang, and I shall hope to see you in your last agony. If any bribe can induce the hangman, by some common bungling to protract your pain, he has but to name his price, and he shall have it." The coach rolled on. Mrs. Lovett rose up from among the straw with a shudder. The immersion in the river had not drowned her certainly, but it had done her no good, and she could not conceal from herself that a serious illness may very probably result from her unexpected cold bath. "Never mind," she said. "Never mind. What care I so that I complete my revenge against Todd? If I die after that it will not much matter. I will have my revenge." The coach stopped at the corner of Bell Yard. "That will do," said Mrs. Lovett as she pulled the check string. "That will do. I will alight here." She paid the coachman double the amount of his fare, so he only muttered a few curses between his tests and drove off, with quite a staggering step, for Mrs. Lovett was anything but well. She walked to her own shop. The door was closed, and she looked through the upper half of it, which was of glass, just in time to see the highly trustworthy personage whom she had left in charge of the concern place a bottle to her lips and slowly lift it up. Mrs. Lovett opened the door, just as the titillating contents of the bottle were rippling over the palate of the lady who had had such an adventure with Todd. "Wretch!" exclaimed Mrs. Lovett. Down fell the bottle and smashed into many fragments on the floor of the shop. An unmistakable odor of gin filled the air. "So," cried Mrs. Lovett, "this is the way you employ your time, is it, while I am away?" Mrs. Lovett finds somebody out at home. Mrs. Lovett finds somebody out at home. Todd, stuttered the woman. Todd is such a nice man. Todd, do you say? Yes, I say, Todd is a nice man. Answer me, wretch, instantly. Has he been here? Speak, or I will shake your wretched life out of you. Mrs. Lovett suited the action to the word and the word to the action, for she clutched her substitute by the throat and shook her vehemently. Don't, Mrs. I will tell all. I will truly. Speak then. Has Todd been here? In course, and quite a nice man. I may say, quite a gin. I mean a nice man, a cordial old Tom. No, cream of the Todd. Wretch, Mrs. Lovett paced the shop for a few moments in an agony of rage. Todd, presuming upon her death, had actually been there, no doubt upon an expedition to ransack the place. A touch to the lock of the parlor door told her at once that it was open, and from that moment she no longer could doubt but that the whole house had been subject to the scrutiny of Sweeney Todd. "The wretch," she said. "He thought to find enough, no doubt, to reward his pains, but he has been deceived in that hope, I feel well assured. What I have here, I have too well hidden for any search of a few hours to find it. If they were to pull the house to pieces, brick by brick and timber by timber, they may find something to pay them for their labor." The lady with the partiality for gin now seemed to be lapsing into a state of somnolency, but Mrs. Lovett gave her rather a rough shake. "Tell me," she said, "when did this man come, and what did he say to you?" "Gin, I ask you what Todd said to you?" "Oh, yes. Really, fine times. Old Tom Todd, cream of the Todd." It was quite clear that she was too far gone in drunkenness for anything distinct or to be relied upon to be got from her, and the only thing Mrs. Lovett had to do was to consider what to do with her. If she threw her out of the shop into the court, the probability was that a crowd would collect round her, and that was just what Mrs. Lovett did not want truly, for all she, Mrs. Lovett, knew. The drunken woman may statter round to Todd's, and let him know what of all things she wished to keep secret from him, namely, that she had returned. Mrs. Lovett had not yet formed her plans, and certainly until she had done so, she did not want any premature knowledge of her rescue from drowning to reach the ears of Todd. But what to do with the drunken woman was the question. Mrs. Lovett had to think a little over that. At length, however, she made up her mind, and approaching the lady who had such a partiality for old Tom, she said, "Did you ever taste my cordial spirit that I have upstairs in my bedroom? Come, I will give you a bottle of it if you will walk upstairs. Only try." By the assistance of Mrs. Lovett, the gin heroine rose and tottered to the staircase. Mrs. Lovett pushed her on, and stair by stair she managed to mount to the first floor. It was by far too great a job to get her any further, so opening the door of the back room, Mrs. Lovett pushed her in with violence and slammed the door upon her. "Lie there and rot," she said, "so that you are out of my way. Lie there and rot, idiot." Without then pausing to cast another thought or look at her victim, Mrs. Lovett walked down the staircase again to the shop. When there, she felt a kind of faintness come over her, and she was compelled to sit down for a few minutes to recover herself. "How much I have to think of," she said, when she had a little recovered. How much I have to think of, and how little a time in which to think. Something must be done before midnight. Todd will fly if I do not do something. A racking pain in her head compelled her to rest it upon her hands. If I thought, she said, that I should get very ill, if I thought that there was any chance that I should die, I would go at once to the police office and denounce him. But no, it is only a passing pang, and I shall soon be better, shall soon be myself again. She did not speak now for some few moments, and during that time she rocked to and fro, for the pain in her head was excessive. It did not last, however, but gradually went off, leaving only a sensation of dullness behind it, with some amount of confusion. Then Mrs. Lovett, as well as she was able, set about thinking calmly and dispassionately, as she hoped, about the best means of satisfying her revenge against Todd. That revenge should be complete and ample, she was resolved. Gradually she began to work out a plan of operations, and as she did so, her eyes brightened and something of her old expression of bold confidence came back to her. She rose and paced the shop. Yes, the villain shall die, she said, by the hands of the executioner, I swear it, and he shall know, too, that it is I who have doomed him to such a death. Chapter 6. Johanna has plenty of company at Todd's. We return to Johanna, whom for a few hours, owing to the pressure of other circumstances, we have been compelled, with all manner of reluctance, to neglect. Recent events, although they had by no manner of means tended to decrease the just confidence which Johanna had in her own safety, had yet much agitated her, and she at times feared that she should not be able to carry on the farce of composure before Todd much longer. Charlie, my dear boy, said Todd, you are a very good lad, truly, and I like you. I am very glad to hear you say so, sir, very glad. That is right. But when I say I like any one, I do not confine myself to that mere expression of liking, and there an end. Of course, as a religious man, I love my enemies, and feel myself bound to do so, Charlie? Of course, sir. Poor Johanna had no resource but to seem to be deceived by this most disgusting hypocrisy. But although, continued Todd, waving a razor in the air, although I may love my enemies, I need not to go out of my way, you know, Charlie, to do good things to them as I would to my friends. But you I will do all I can for, and as it may very materially help you to get an honest independence in the course of a little time, I will manage to accommodate you with sleeping here tonight and all nights henceforth. How kind of you, sir. I am glad you appreciate it, Charlie, and I feel quite sure that your slumber will be most profound. Todd, upon this, made one of his diabolical faces, and then, taking his hat, he marched out, merely adding as he crossed the threshold of the door, I shall not be long gone, Charlie. The day was on the decline, and a strong impression came over Johanna's mind that something in particular would happen before it wholly passed away into darkness. She almost trembled to think what that something could be, and that she may be compelled to be a witness to violence, from which her gentle spirit revolted, and had it not been that she had determined nothing should stop her from investigating the fate of poor Mark and Jestry, she could evening then have rushed into the street in despair. But as the soft daylight deepened into the dim shadows of evening, she grew more composed and was better able, with a calmer spirit, to wait the progress of events. I am alone once more, said Johanna, in this dreadful place. Again he leaves me with all my dark and terrible thoughts of the fate of him whom I have so fondly loved thronging around my heart, and this night, no doubt, he thinks to kill me. Oh, Mark and Jestry, if I were only but quite sure that you had gone to that world from where there is no return, I think I could, with scarce a sigh, let this dreadful man send me after you. Johanna rested her head upon her hands, and wept bitterly. Suddenly a voice close to her said, St. Dunstan. She sprang from the little low seat upon which she was, and, with a cry of alarm, was about to make a rush from the shop, when the intruder caught her by the arm, saying, Don't you know me, Johanna? Ah, Sir Richard, my dear friend, it is, truly, you, and I am safe again. I am safe. Certainly you are safe, and permit me to say that you have all along been tolerably safe. Johanna, But how very incautious you are. Here I have come into the shop, and actually stood by you for some few moments, you knowing nothing of it. What now if Todd had so come in? He would have killed me. He may have done so, but now all danger is quite over, for you will have protectors at your hand. Do you know where Todd has gone? I do not. Well, it don't matter. Let me look at this largest cupboard. I wonder if it will hold 2 of my men? Let me see. Oh, yes, easily and comfortably. I will be back in a moment. He went no further than the door, and when he came back, he brought with him Mr. Crotchet and another person, and pointing to the cupboard, he said, "You will stow yourselves there, if you please, and keep quiet until I call upon you to come out." "I believe you," said Crotchet. "Lord bless you, we shall be snug enough. How is you, Miss O? I suppose by this time you feels quite at home in your breech." "Silence," said Sir Richard. "Go to your duty at once, Crotchet. Miss Oakley is in no humor to attend to you just now." Upon this, Mr. Crotchet and the other man got into the cupboard, and a chair was placed against it, and then Sir Richard said to Johanna, "I will come in to be shaved when I know that Todd is here, and your trials will soon be over." To be shaved? By him? Yes, but believe me there is no danger. Any one may come here now to be shaved with perfect safety. I have made such arrangements that Todd cannot take another life. Thank heaven. Here is a letter from your friend, Miss Wilmot, which I promised her I would deliver to you. Be careful how you let Todd see it. Read it at once, and then you had better destroy it at once. I must go now. But, of course, if you should be in any danger, call upon my men in the cupboard to assist you, and they will do so at once, although it may spoil my plot a little. Oh, how much I owe you! No, no, no more upon that head. Farewell now, for a brief space. We shall very soon meet again. Keep a fair and agreeable face to Todd, if you can, for I do not wish, if it can possibly be helped, anything to mar the plot I have got up for his absolute conviction upon abundant testimony." Sir Richard shook hands with Johanna, and then hastily left the shop, for he did not wish just then to be found there by Todd, who may return at any moment. The moment he was gone, Johanna eagerly opened the letter that had been brought to her, and found it to contain the following words: "My dear Johanna, this is a selfish letter, for as I cannot see you, I think I should go mad if I did not write to you. So I do so for the ease of my own heart and brain, for the love of heaven, and for the love of all you hold dear in this world. Get away from Todd as quickly as you can, and when I see you again, I shall have something to say to you which will give you more pleasure than ever. With my bad advice, I have given you pain. Sir Richard Blunt has kindly promised to give this to you, and you know that I am your ever affectionate Arabella." "Yes," said Johanna, when she had finished the epistle. "In truth I know you are ever my affectionate Arabella, and I am most happy in such a friend. But this must not meet Todd's eye. Ah, that footstep, I know it too well. He comes, he comes." She had just hidden the letter, when Sweeney Todd made his appearance. "Anybody been?" he asked. "Yes, one man, but he would not wait." "Ah, wanted to be shaved, I suppose. But no matter, no matter, and I hope you have been quiet, and not been attempting to indulge your curiosity in any way, since I have been gone. Hush! Here's somebody coming. Why, it's old Mr. Rankley, the tobacconist, I declare. Good day to you, sir. Shaved, I suppose? I'm glad you have come, sir, for I have been out till this moment. Hot water, Charlie, directly, and hand me that razor." Johanna, in handing Todd the razor, knocked the edge of it against the chair, and it being uncommonly sharp, cut a great slice of the wood off one of the arms of it. "What shameful carelessness," said Todd. "I have half a mind to lay the strop over your back, sir. Here you have spoilt a capital razor, not a bit of edge left upon it." "Oh, excuse him, Mr. Todd, excuse him," said the old gentleman. "He's only a little lad, after all. Let me intercede for him." "Very good, sir. If you wish me to look over it, of course I will. And, thank God, we have a stock of razors, of course, always at hand. Is there any news stirring, sir?" Nothing that I know of, Mr. Todd, except it's the illness of Mr. Cummings, the overseer. They say he got home about 12 to his own house in Chancery Lane, and ever since then he has been as sick as a dog, and all they can get him to say is, oh, those pies, oh, those pies. Very odd, sir. Very. I think Mr. Cummings must be touched in the upper story. Do you know, Mr. Todd? He's a very respectable man, but, between you and I, was never over bright. Certainly not, sir. Certainly not. But it's a very odd case. What pies can he possibly mean, sir? Did you call when you came from home? No. Ha, ha. I can't help laughing. But, ha, ha. I have come away from home on the sly, you see. The fact is, my wife's cousin, Hilloa. I think you have cut me. No, no, we can't cut anybody for 3 halfpence, sir. I think I will just give you another lather, sir, before I polish you off. And so you have the pearls with you? Well, how odd things come round, to be sure. What do you mean? This shaving brush is just in a good state now. Always as a shaving brush is on the point of wearing out, it's the best. Charlie, you will go at once to Mr. Cummings and ask if he is any better. You need not hurry. That's a good lad. I am not at all angry with you now. And so, sir, they think at home that you have gone after some business over the water, do they, and have not the least idea that you have come to be shaved? There, be off, Charlie, shut the door, that's a good lad, bless you. When Johanna came back, the tobacconist was gone. Well, said Sweeney Todd, as he sharpened a razor very leisurely, how is Mr. Cummings? I found out his house, sir, with some difficulty, and they say he is better, having gone to sleep. Oh, very good. I am going to look over some accounts in the parlor, so don't choose to be disturbed, you understand, and for the next 10 minutes. If anybody comes, you will say I am out. Sweeney Todd walked quite coolly into the parlor, and Johanna heard him lock the door on the inside. A strange, undefined sensation of terror crept over her. She knew not why, and she shuddered as she looked around her. The cupboard door was not close shut, and she knew not what prompted her to approach and peep in. On the first shelf was the hat of the tobacconist. It was rather a remarkable one, and recognized in a moment. What has happened? Good God! What can have happened? Thought Johanna, as she staggered back until she reached the shaving chair, into which she cast herself for support. Her eyes fell upon the arm which she had taken such a shaving off with a razor, but all was perfectly whole and correct. There was not the least mark of the cut that so recently had been given to it, and lost in wonder, Johanna, for more than a minute, continued looking for the mark of the injury she knew could not have been, by any possibility, effaced. And yet she found it not, although there was the chair, just as usual, with its wide-spreading arms and its worn, tarnished paint and gilding. No wonder that Johanna rubbed her eyes, and asked herself if she were really awake. What could account for such a phenomenon? The chair was a fixture too, and the others in the shop were of a widely different make and construction, so it could not have been changed. Alas, alas, mourned Johanna, my mind is full of horrible surmises, and yet I can form no rational conjecture. I suspect everything, and know nothing. What can I do? What ought I to do to relieve myself from this state of horrible suspense? Am I really in a place where, by some frightful ingenuity, murder has become bold and familiar, or can it be all a delusion? She covered her face with her hands for a time, and when she uncovered them, she saw that Sweeney Todd was staring at her with looks of suspicion from the inner room. The necessity of instantly acting her part came over Johanna, and she gave a loud scream. What the devil is all this about? Said Todd, advancing with a sinister expression. What's the meaning of it? I suspect. Yes, sir, said Johanna, and so do I. I must to-morrow have it out. Have what out? My tooth, sir. It's been aching for some hours. Did you ever have the toothache? If you did, you can feel for me, and not wonder that I lean my head upon my hands and groan. Todd looked about half satisfied at this excuse of Johanna's, and for a few moments, as he looked at her, She thought that after all she should have to call upon her friends in the cupboard to save her from the danger that his eyes, in their flashing ghastliness, threatened. Another moment, and her lips would have parted with the shrill cry of "murder" upon them, and then heaven only knows what may have been the result. But he turned suddenly, and went into the parlor, muttering to himself, "It is not worth while now, and this night ends it all. Yes, this night ends it all." He slammed the door violently behind him, and Johanna was relieved from the horror which his gaze had awakened in her heart. She stood still, but gradually she recovered her former calmness, if calmness it could at all be called, seeing that it was only a stiller species of agitation. But she now began to recall the words of Sir Richard Blunt to the effect that measures had been taken that no more murders could be committed by Todd, and she began to feel comforted. "There is something that I do not know yet," she said. "Sir Richard should have told me how there could be no more murders done here, and then I should not have suffered what I did, and what I still suffer with the thought that almost before my eyes a fellow creature has been hurried into eternity, and yet I ought to have faith, and in defiance of all the seeming evidences of a horrible deed about me, I ought, I suppose, to believe that it has been prevented in some most strange and miraculous way." The more Johanna thought over this promise of Sir Richard Blunt's, the more she became convinced that he would never have given utterance to it if he had not felt perfectly sure it would be fulfilled, and so she got comforted, and once again resolved to play her part in that dreadful drama of real life, in the vortex of which, with the purest and the holiest of motives, she had plunged recklessly, we will admit, but yet from motives entitling her to sympathy on earth and protection in heaven. Todd remained for a considerable time in the parlor, and when he came out, Johanna saw that he had made some alteration in his apparel. The first words he uttered were, "Keep a good fire, Charlie." "Yes, sir. Did you ever see a house on fire, my boy?" "I never did, sir." "Ah, it must be an amusing sight, a very amusing sight, especially if the conflagration spreads, and one has an opportunity of viewing it from the water. Talking of water, the lady who was here this morning, Mrs. Lovett, was very fond of water, and now she has got plenty of it." "Ah, really, sir? Has she gone to the seaside?" Johanna looked Todd rather hard in the face as she spoke these words, and the close observation seemed to anger him, for he spoke hastily and sharply. "What is it to you? Get out of my way, will you? And you may begin to think of shutting up, I think, for we shall have no more customers tonight. I am tired and weary. You are to sleep under the counter, you know." "Yes, sir, you told me so. I dare say I shall be very comfortable there. And you have not been peeping and prying about, have you?" "Not at all. Not looking evening into that cupboard, I suppose, eh? It's not locked, but that's no reason why you should look into it. Not that there is any secrets in it, but I object to peeping and prying upon principle." Todd, as he spoke, advanced towards the cupboard, and Johanna thought that in another moment a discovery would undoubtedly take place of the two officers who were there concealed, and probably that would have been the case had not the handle of the shop door been turned at that moment, and a man presented himself, when Todd turned quickly and saw that he was a substantial-looking farmer with dirty top boots, as if he had just come off a journey. "Well, master," said the visitor, "I wants a clean shave." "Oh," said Todd, not in the best of humors, "it's rather late, but I suppose you would not like to wait till morning, for I don't know if I have any hot water." "Oh, cold will do." "Cold? Oh, dear no, we never shave in cold water, and if you must, you must. So sit down, sir, and we will soon settle the business." Thank you, thank you. I can't go to bed comfortable without a clean shave. Do you see, I have come up from Braintree with beasts on commission, and I'm staying at the Bull's Head, you see." "Oh, truly," said Todd, as he adjusted the shaving cloth. "The Bull's Head." "Yes, master. Why, I brought up a matter o' 220 beasts, I did, do you see, and was on my pony, as good a stepper as you'd wish to see, and I sold 'em all, do you see, for 550 pun. Ho, ho, good work that, do you see, and only 42 on 'em was my beasts, do you see. I've got a missus at home, and a daughter, my girl's called Johanna, ahem." Up to this point Johanna had not suspected that the game had begun, and that this was no other than Sir Richard himself, most admirably disguised, who had come to put an end to the malpractices of Sweeney Todd. But his marked pronunciation of her name at once opened her eyes to that fact, and she knew that something interesting must soon happen. "And so you sold them all," said Todd. "Yes, master, I did, and I've got the money in my pocket now, in bank notes. I never leaves my money about at inns. Do you see, master? Safe find, you see. I carries it about with me. A good plan, too," said Todd. "Charlie, some hot water. That's a good lad, and, Charlie." "Yes, sir. While I am finishing off this gentleman, you may as well just run to the temple to Mr. Sergeant Toldrini's and ask for his wig. We shall have to do it in the morning, and may as well have it the first thing in the day to begin upon. And you need not hurry, Charlie, as we shall shut up when you come back." "Very good, sir." Johanna walked out, but went no further than the shop window, close to which she placed her eyes, so that, between a pomatum jar and a lot of hair brushes, she could clearly see what was going on. "A nice-looking little lad, that," said Todd's customer. "Very, sir. An orphan boy. I took him out of charity, poor little fellow. But then, we ought to try to do all the good we can." "Just so. I'm glad I have come to be shaved here. Mine's rather a strong beard, I think. Do you see?" "Why, sir, in a manner of speaking," replied Todd, "it is a strong beard." Chapter CX. Todd's hour has come. The hideous face that Todd made above the head of his customer at this moment was more like that which Mephistopheles may have made after achieving the destruction of a human soul than anything human. Sir Richard Blunt quickly replied to Todd's question by saying, "Oh, yes, quite alone. Except the drovers, I had no company with me. Why do you ask?" "Why, sir, I thought if you had any gentleman with you who may be waiting at the Bull's Head, you would recommend him to me if anything was wanting in my way, you know, sir. You may have just left him, saying you were going to Todd the barber's, to have a clean shave, sir." "No, not at all. The fact is, I did not come out to have a shave, but a walk, and it wasn't till I gave my chin a stroke, and found what a beard I had, that I thought of it, and then passing your shop, in I popped. Do you see?" "Exactly, sir. I comprehend. You are quite alone in London?" "Oh, quite. But when I come again, I'll come to you to be shaved, you may depend, and I'll recommend you, too." "I'm very much obliged to you," said Todd, as he passed his hand over the chin of his customer. "I'm very much obliged. I find I must give you another lather, sir, and I'll get another razor with a keener edge, now that I have taken off all the rough, as one may say, in a manner of speaking." "Oh, I shall do. No, no, don't move, sir. I shall not detain you a moment. I have mine other razors in the next room, and will polish you off now, sir, before you will know where you are. You know, sir, you have promised to recommend me, so I must do the best I can with you." "Well, well, a clean shave is a comfort, but don't be long, for I want to get back, do you see?" "Not a moment, not a moment." Sweeney Todd walked into his back parlor, conveying with him the only light that was in the shop, so that the dim glimpse that, up to this time, Johanna from the outside had contrived to get of what was going on, was denied to her, and all that met her eyes was impenetrable darkness. Oh, what a world of anxious, agonizing sensations crossed the mind of the young and beautiful girl at that moment. She felt as if some great crisis in her history had arrived, and that she was condemned to look in vain into darkness to see of what it consisted. We must not, however, allow the reader to remain in the same state of mystification which came over the perceptive faculties of Johanna Oakley, but we shall proceed to state clearly and distinctly what did happen in the barber's shop while he went to get an uncommonly keen razor in his back parlor. The moment his back was turned, the seeming farmer who had made such a good thing of his beasts sprang from the shaving chair, as if he had been electrified, and yet he did not do it with any appearance of fright, nor did he make any noise. It was only astonishingly quick, and then he placed himself close to the window, and waited patiently with his eyes fixed upon the chair, to see what would happen next. In the space of about a quarter of a minute, there came from the next room a sound like the rapid drawing back of a heavy bolt, and then, in an instant, the shaving chair disappeared beneath the floor, and the circumstances by which Sweeney Todd's customers disappeared was evident. There was a piece of the flooring turning upon a center, and the weight of the chair when a bolt was withdrawn by means of simple leverage from the inner room, weighed down one end of the top, which, by a little apparatus, was to swing completely round, there being another chair on the under surface, which thus became the upper, exactly resembling the one in which the unhappy customer was supposed to be polished off. Therefore was it that in one moment, as if by magic, Sweeney Todd's visitors disappeared, and there was the empty chair. No doubt, he trusted to a fall of about 20 feet below, onto a stone floor, to be the death of them, or, at all events, to stun them until he could go down to finish the murder, and to cut them up for Mrs. Lovett's pies, after robbing them of all the money and valuables they may have about them. In another moment, the sound as of a bolt was again heard, and Sir Richard Blunt, who had played the part of the wealthy farmer, feeling that the trap was closed again, seated himself in the new chair that had made its appearance with all the nonchalance in life, as if nothing had happened. It was a full minute before Todd ventured to look from the parlor into the darkened shop, and then he shook so that he had to hold by the door to steady himself. "That's done," he said. "That's the last, I hope. It is time I finished. I never felt so nervous since the first time." Then I did quake a little. How quiet he went. I have sometimes had a shriek ringing in my ears for a whole week. It was a large high-backed piece of furniture, that shaving chair, so that, when Todd crept into the shop with a light in his hand, he had not the remotest idea it was tenanted. But when he got round it, and saw his customer calmly waiting with the lather upon his face, the cry of horror that came gurgling and gushing from his throat was horrible to hear. "Why, what's the matter?" said Sir Richard. "Oh God, the dead, the dead! Oh God!" cried Todd. "This is the beginning of my punishment. Have mercy, Heaven! Oh, do not look upon me with those dead eyes." "Murderer!" shouted Sir Richard, in a voice that rung like the blast of a trumpet through the house. In an instant he sprang upon Sweeney Todd and grappled him by the throat. There was a short struggle, and they were down upon the floor together, but Todd's wrists were suddenly laid hold of, and a pair of handcuffs most scientifically put upon him by the officers who, at the word murderer, that being a preconcerted signal, came from the cupboard where they had been concealed. "Secure him well, my men," said the magistrate, "and don't let him lay violent hands upon himself. Sweeney Todd's hour has come. Sweeney Todd's hour has come." Johanna rushed into the shop and clung to the arm of Sir Richard, crying, "Is it all over? Is it truly all done now?" "It is, Miss Oakley." The moment Todd heard these few words addressed to Charlie Green, as he thought him, he turned his glassy, bloodshot eyes upon Johanna, and glared at her for the space of about half a minute in silence. He then, although handcuffed, made a sudden and violent effort to reach her, but he was in too experienced hands, and he was held back most effectually. He struck his forehead with his fettered hands, making a gash in it from which the blood flowed freely. As in infuriated accents, he said, "Oh fool, fool, to be cheated by a girl. I had my suspicions that the boy was a spy, but I never thought for one moment there was a disguise of sex. Oh, idiot, idiot! And who are you, sir?" "I am Sir Richard Blunt." Todd groaned and staggered. The officers would have let him sit down in the shaving chair for a moment or two to recover from the shock his mind had sustained by his capture, but when he found that it was the shaving chair he was led to, he shuddered, and in a wailing voice, said, "No, no, not there, not there, anywhere but there. I dare not sit there." "It isn't worth while sitting at all," said Crotchet. "I'm blowed if I ain't all crumpled up in a blessed mummy by being in that cupboard so jolly long. All my joints is a-going crinkly-crankly." Todd looked in the face of Sir Richard Blunt, and in a faint voice spoke, I don't feel very well. There's a little drop of cordial medicine that I often take in my coat pocket. You see I can't get at it, my hands being manacled. I only want to take a drop to comfort me." "Get it out, Crotchet," said Sir Richard. "Here ye is," said Crotchet, as he produced a little bottle with a pale straw-colored liquid in from Todd's pocket. "Give it to me. Oh, give it to me," said Todd. "I will thank you much. It will recover me. Give it to me." "No, Todd," said Sir Richard as he took the little bottle and put it in his own pocket. "I do not intend, if I can help it, to permit you to evade the law by poisoning yourself." Finding himself thus defeated in his insidious attempt upon his own life, Todd got quite frantic with rage, and had a grand struggle with the officers, in his endeavors to get at some of the razors that were near at hand in the shop, but they effectually prevented him from doing so, and finally he became too much exhausted to make any further efforts. "My curses be upon you all," he said. "May you, and all who belong to you," but we cannot transcribe the horrible denunciations of Todd. They were too horrible evening for the officers to listen to with patience, and Sir Richard Blunt, turning to Johanna, said, "Run over the way to your friends at the fruiterer's. All is over now, and your disguise is no longer needed." Johanna did not pause another moment, but ran over the way, and in the course of a few moments she was in the arms of the fruiterer's daughter, where she relieved her overcharged heart by weeping bitterly. "Shut up the shop, Crotchet," said Sir Richard Blunt, "and then get a coach. I will lodge this man at once in Newgate, and then we will see to Mrs. Lovett." At this name Todd looked up. "She has escaped you," he said. "I don't think so," responded Sir Richard, "but I say she has. She is dead. She fell into the Thames this morning and was drowned." "Oh, you allude to your pushing her into the river this morning near London Bridge," said Sir Richard. "I saw that affair myself." Todd glared at him, but it was not of much consequence. "We got her out, and she is all right again now at her shop in Bell Yard." Todd held his hands over his eyes for some moments, and then he said in a low voice, "It is all a dream, or I am mad." Crotchet, in obedience to the orders he had received, put up the shutters of Todd's shop, and then fetched a coach, during the whole of which time Sir Richard Blunt himself kept his hand upon Todd's collar, so that he could control him if he should again become so violent as he had been. The spirit to struggle was, however, gone from Todd for the time being. Truly, he seemed to be completely stunned by his capture, and to be able only to see things darkly. He was yet to awaken to a full consciousness of his situation, and let that awakening be when it would, it was sure to be awful. "All's right," said Crotchet. "Here's the vehicle, and the crib is shut up." Crotchet. "Yes, your worship. What is it?" "Why, you never looked at a feller in that sort of way before." "I never did have anything so important to say to you, Crotchet, nor did I ever place in your hands so important a trust. It is one that will make you or mar you, Crotchet. I have myself important business here, or I would myself take this man to Newgate. As it is, Crotchet, I wish to entrust you with that important piece of duty, and I rely upon you, Crotchet, for keeping an eye upon him and delivering him in safety." "It's as good as done," said Crotchet. "If he gets away from me, he has only another individual to do, and that's the old gent as is down below, with the long tail. Lor bless you, sir, didn't I say from the first as Todd smugged the people as comed to him to be shaved?" "You did, Crotchet. Wery good. Then does yer think as I'm the feller all for to let him go when once I've got a hold of him?" "Rather not. I entrust you with him then, Crotchet. Take him away. I give him entirely into your hands." Upon this, Crotchet slid his arm beneath that of Sweeney Todd, and looking in his face with a most grotesque air of satisfaction, he said, "Kim up, Kim up." He then, by an immense exertion of strength, hoisted Todd completely over the doorstep, after which, catching him with both hands about the small of his back, he pitched him into the coach. "My eye," said the coachman, "has the J-man had a drop too much?" "He will have," said Crotchet, "some o' these odd days." "To Newgate, to Newgate." Crotchet rode inside along with Todd, for fear he should be dull, he said, and the other officer got up outside the coach, and then off it went to that dreadful building that Todd had often grimly smiled at as he passed, but into which as a resident he had never expected to enter. Sir Richard Blunt remained in the shop of Sweeney Todd. The oil lamp that hung by a chain from the ceiling shed a tolerable light over all objects, and no sooner had the magistrate fastened the outer door after the departure of Crotchet with Todd than he stamped 3 times heavily upon the floor of the shop. This signal was immediately answered by 3 distinct taps from underneath the floor, and then the magistrate stamped again in the same manner. The effect of all this stamping and counter-signals was immediately very apparent. The great chair which has played so prominent a part in the atrocities of Sweeney Todd slowly sunk, and the revolving plank hung suspended by its axle, while a voice from below called out, "Is all right, sir?" "Yes, Crotchet has taken him to Newgate. I am now alone. Come up." "We are coming, sir." We all heard a little disturbance, but the floor is very thick, you know, sir, so we could not take upon ourselves to say exactly what was happening. "Oh, it's all right." He resisted, but by this time he is within the stone walls of Newgate. "Let me lend you a hand." Sir Richard Blunt stooped over the aperture in the floor, and the first person that got up was no other than Mr. Rankley the tobacconist. "How do you feel after your tumble?" said Sir Richard. "Oh, very well. The fact is they caught me so capitally below that it was quite easy. Todd did not think it worth his while to come down to see if I were alive or dead. Ah, that was the only chance, but of course if he had done so he must have been taken at once into custody. That would have been all. Come on, my friends, come on. Our trouble with regard to Todd is over now, I think." The 2 churchwardens of St. Dunstan's and the Beadle, and 4 of Sir Richard Blunt's officers, and the fruiter from opposite, now came up from below the shop of Sweeney Todd, where they had been all waiting to catch Mr. Rankley when the chair should descend with him. "Conwulsions," said the Beadle. "I runned agin everybody when I seed him a-coming. I thought to myself, if a parochial authority had been served in that before way, there would have been an end of the world at once. I had some idea of asking you at one time to play that little part for me," said Sir Richard. "Convulsions. Had you, sir?" "Yes. But now, my friends, let us make a careful search of this house, and among the first things we have to do is to remove all the combustible materials that Todd has stowed in various parts of it, for unless I am much deceived, the premises are in such a state that the merest accident would set them in a blaze." "Convulsions," then cried the Beadle. Chapter CXI. Mrs. Lovett Plans. We hastened to Bell Yard again. Mrs. Lovett's immersion in the Thames had really not done her much harm. Perhaps the river was a little purer than we now find it, and probably it had not entirely got rid of its name of the Silver Thames, an appellation that now would be really out of place, unless we can imagine some silver of a much more dingy hue than silver ordinarily presents to the eye of the observer. She soon, we find, settled in her own mind a plan of action, notwithstanding the rather complicated and embarrassing circumstances in which she found herself placed. That plan of action had for its basis the impeachment of Todd as a murderer, at the same time that it looked forward to her own escape from the hands of justice. Her first action was to quiet the cook in the regions below, for if she did not take some such step, she was very much afraid her establishment may come to a standstill some few hours before she intended that it should do so. With this object, she wrote upon a little slip of paper the following words, and passed it into the cellar through an almost imperceptible crevice in the flooring of the shop. "Early tomorrow morning you shall have your liberty, together with gold to take you where you please. All I require of you is that you do your ordinary duty tonight, and send up the 9 o'clock batch of pies." This, she considered, could not but have its due effect upon the discontented cook, and having transmitted it to him in the manner we have described, she sat down at her desk to write the impeachment of Todd. In the course of an hour, Mrs. Lovett had filled 2 pages of writing paper with a full account of how persons met their death in the barber's shop. She sealed the letter, and directed it to Sir Richard Blunt in a bold free hand. "It is done," she said, "when I am far from London, as I can easily find the means of being. this will reach the hands of the magistrate to whom it is addressed, and who has the character of being sharp and active. Mrs. Lovett did not know how sharp and active Sir Richard had already been in her affairs. He will act upon it. Todd, in the amid of his guilt, with many evidences of it about him, will be taken, and I shall escape. Yes, I shall escape, with about a tithe of what I ought to have, but I shall have revenge. On one of the shelves of the shop, certainly out of reach, but only just so, stood an old dirty-looking tin jar, such as fancy biscuits may be kept in. No one for a moment would have thought of looking for anything valuable in such a place, and yet, keeping the shop door locked the while, lest any intruder should at unawares pop in and see what she was about, it was to this tin can upon its dirty shelf that Mrs. Lovett cautiously went. "Those who hide can find," she muttered. I warrant now that Todd had searched in every seemingly cunning and intricate hiding place in this whole house, and he has gone away disappointed. The secret of hiding anything is not to try to find some place where people may be baffled when they look, but to light upon some place into which they will not look at all. With these words, Mrs. Lovett took down the tin can, and having from the upper portion of it removed some dusty, moldy small biscuits, she dived her hand into it, and fished up a leathern bag. The tape that held its mouth together was sealed, and a glance sufficed to convince Mrs. Lovett that it had not been touched. "Safe, safe," she muttered. "It is but £1,000, but it is safe, and it will enable me to fly from this place. It will enable me to have vengeance upon Todd, and small as the sum is in some country, where money is worth more than it is in pampered England, I shall yet be able to live upon it. I will not complain if I have but the joy of reading an account of the execution of Todd. I fear I must deny myself the pleasure of seeing that sight." The little leathern bag she hid about her, and then she carefully replaced the tin case upon the shelf from where she had taken it, to disburthen it of its costly contents. After this Mrs. Lovett got much calmer. She had not the least apprehension now of a visit from Todd. She saw by the state of the house that his search had been a prolonged one, and until he shut up his own shop, she did not expect that he would again think of coming to Bell Yard, and as that would be 10 o'clock, she fully believed that before then she would be far away. And then she sat behind her counter, looking only a shade or so paler than was her wont, and moving her lips slightly now and then as she settled in her own mind the course that she would take so as to baffle all pursuit. "With no luggage but my gold and notes," she muttered, "I will leave this place at 9:30, by which time the last batch of pies will have been up and sold and all will be quiet. That will be a little more money to me. Then on foot I will take my way to Highgate. Yes, to Highgate, and I will trust no conveyance, for that may be a ready means of tracing me. I will go on foot. Then passing Highgate, I will go on foot upon the Great North Road until some coach overtakes me. It will not matter where it be going, so that it takes me on that road, and by one conveyance and another, I shall at length reach Liverpool, from which port I shall find some vessel starting to some place abroad, where I can live free from the chance of detection. Yes, that is the plan. That is the plan." Mrs. Lovett was a woman of some tact, and the plan of operations she had chalked out was all very well, provided such very malapropos proceedings had not taken place at Sweeney Todd's in the meantime. Little did Mrs. Lovett suspect what was there transpiring, and now we will leave her for a brief space behind her counter, ruminating, and at odd times smiling to herself in a ghastly fashion, while we pop down to the cellars, and take a glance at the impatient imprisoned cook. About 10 minutes before he received the letter, if letter the little flattering memorandum of Mrs. Lovett could be called, from his mistress, the cook had been a little alarmed by a noise in the stone pantry, where the mysterious meat used to make its appearance. Upon proceeding to the spot with a light, he found lying upon the floor a sealed paper, upon lifting which he saw was addressed to himself, and at one corner was written the following words: "Definitive instructions for tonight from Sir Richard Blunt." To tear open the letter and to read it with great care was the work of a few moments only, and then drawing a long breath, the cook said, "Thank God." I shall not stop another night in this place. I shall be free before midnight. Oh, what an oppressive, what an overpowering joy it will be to me once more to see the sky, to breathe pure fresh air, and to feel that I have bid adieu forever to this dreadful, dreadful place. The poor cook looked around him with a shudder, and then he had hardly placed the magistrate's letter securely in his bosom, when the little missive from Mrs. Lovett came fluttering to his feet through the crack in the roof. "It is well," he said, when he had read it. "It is very well. This will chime in most admirably with my instructions from Sir Richard Blunt. Mrs. Lovett, I thank you. You shall have the 9 o'clock batch. Oh, yes, you shall have them. I am all obedience. Alas, if she whom I loved had not been false to me, I may yet, young as I am, feel the sunshine of joy in the great world again. But I can never love another, and she is lost, lost to me forever. Ay, forever." With this the poor cook, who but a few moments before had been so elated by the thoughts of freedom, sat himself down, and in quite a disconsolate manner rested his head upon his hands, and gave himself up to bitter fancy. "That she should be false to me," he said mournfully, "it does truly almost transcend belief. She, so young, so gentle, so innocent, and so guileless. If an angel from heaven had come and told me as much I should have doubted still, but I cannot mistrust the evidence of my own senses. I saw her. Yes, I saw her." The cook rose, and paced the gloomy place to and fro in the restlessness of a blighted heart, and no one to look at him could for a moment have supposed that he was near his freedom from an imprisonment of the most painful and maddening description to one of his impatient temperament. But so it is with us all. No sooner do we to all appearance see the end of one evil, than with an activity of imagination worthy to be excited in better things, we provide ourselves with some real or unreal reason for the heartache. "I will so contrive," said the cook, "that before I leave forever the land of my birth, I will once more look upon her. Yes, I will once again drink in, from a contemplation of her wondrous beauty, most delicious poison, and then when I have feasted my eyes, and perhaps grieved my heart, I will at once go far away, and beneath the sun of other skies than this, I will wait for death." The more the poor cook thought of this unknown beauty of his, who surely had behaved to him very ill, or he could not have spoken of her in such terms, the more sorrow got upon his countenance, and imparted its sad sweetness to his tones. Surely the time had not been very far distant when that young man must have been in a widely different sphere of life to that limited one in which he now moved. Suddenly, however, he was recalled to a consciousness of what he had to do. By the clock striking 7, he counted the strokes, and then pausing before one of the large ovens, he said, "The time has now come when I must cease to be making preparations to obey the mandate of my imperious mistress. She will not now be content merely to have issued her orders, but she will keep an eye upon me to see that they are being executed, and unarmed as I am, and without the knowledge of what power of mischief she may have, I feel that it would not be safe yet to provoke her. No, no, I must seem to do her bidding." With this, the cook set about the manufacture of the pies, and as it would really have been much more troublesome to sham making them than to make them in earnest, he really did manufacture 100 of them. But it was after all with a very bad grace that the poor imprisoned cook now made the pies, and probably so very indifferent a batch of those delicious pieces of pastry had never before found its way into the ovens of Mrs. Lovett. The cook was not wrong in his idea that his imperious mistress would take a peep at him before 9 o'clock. At about 8, the little grating in the high-up door was tapped by something that Mrs. Lovett had in her hand, with which to attract the attention of the cook. He looked up and saw her dimly. "Are you busy?" she said. "Yes, madam, as busy as the 9 o'clock batch usually makes me. Do you not hear the oven?" "I do, it is well." "Ah, madam," said the dissembling cook, "it will be well, truly, if you keep your word with me, and set me tonight at freedom. Do you doubt it?" "I have no particular reason to doubt it, further than that the unfortunate are always inclined to doubt too good news. That is all, madam. If you doubt, you will be agreeably disappointed, for I shall keep my word with you." You have done for me much better than I ever expected, and I will be grateful to you now that you are going. I have said that you shall not go without means, and you shall have a purse of 20 guineas to help you on your way wherever you wish. How kind you are, madam. Ah, I shall be able now to forgive you for all that I have suffered in this place, and after all, it has been a refuge from want. It has. No one can be better pleased than I am to find you view things so reasonably. Send up the 9 o'clock batch, and then wait patiently until I come to you. I will. Till then, good night. Mrs. Lovett left the grating, and as she went up to the shop, she muttered to herself, they will, when they find him here, suspect he is an accomplice. Well, let them hang him, for all I care. Chapter CZI. Mrs. Lovett finds that it is easier to plan than to execute. It wants 5 minutes to 9, and Mrs. Lovett's shop is filling with persons anxious to devour or to carry away one or more of the 9 o'clock batch of savory, delightful, gushing gravy pies. Many of Mrs. Lovett's customers paid her in advance for the pies, in order that they may be quite sure of getting their orders fulfilled when the first batch should make its gracious appearance from the depths below. Well, Jiggs, said one of the legal fraternity to another, how are you today, old fellow? What do you bring it in? Oh, I ain't very blooming. The fact is, the Count and I, and a few others, made a night of it last evening, and somehow or another I don't think whiskey and water, half and half, and tripe, go well together. I should wonder if they did. And so I've come for a pie just to settle my stomach. You see, I'm rather delicate. Ah, you are just like me, young man, there, said an elderly personage. I have a delicate stomach, and the slightest thing disagrees with me. A mere idea will make me quite ill. Will it, really? Yes, and my wife, oh, bother your wife. It's only 5 minutes to 9. Don't you see what a crowd there is, to be sure? Mrs. Lovett, you charmer, I hope you have ordered enough pies to be made tonight. You see what a lot of customers you have. Oh, there will be plenty. That's right. I say, don't push so. You'll be in time, I tell you. Don't be pushing and driving in that sort of way. I've got ribs. And so have I. Last night I didn't get a pie at all, and my old woman is in a certain condition, you see, gentlemen, and won't fancy anything but one of Lovett's veal pies. So I've come all the way from Newington to get one for. Hold your row, will you? And don't push, for to have the child marked with a pie on its behind there, I say, don't be pushing a fellow as if it were half price at a theatre. Each moment added some newcomers to the throng, and at last any strangers who had known nothing of the attractions of Mrs. Lovett's pie shop and had walked down Bell Yard, would have been astonished at the throng of persons there assembled, a throng that was each moment increasing in density and becoming more and more urgent and clamorous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, it is 9 at last. It strikes by old St. Dunstan's church clock, and in weaker strains the chronomedical machine at the pie shop echoes the sound. What excitement there is to get at the pies, when they shall come. Mrs. Lovett lets down the square movable platform that goes on pulleys in the cellar. Some machinery, which only requires a handle to be turned, brings up 100 pies in a tray. These are eagerly seized by parties who have previously paid, and such a smacking of lips ensues as never was known. Down goes the platform for the next 100, and a gentlemanly man says, "Let me work the handle, Mrs. Lovett, if you please. It's too much for you, I'm sure, sir. You are very kind, but I never allow anybody on the side of the counter but my own people, sir. I can turn the handle myself, sir, if you please, with the assistance of this girl. Keep your distance, sir. Nobody wants your help. But my dear madam, only consider your delicacy. Really, you ought not to be permitted to work away like a Negro slave at a winch handle. Really, you ought not." The man who spoke thus obligingly to Mrs. Lovett was tall and stout, and the lawyer's clerks repressed the ire they otherwise would probably have given utterance to at thus finding any one quizzing their charming Mrs. Love it, sir. I tell you again that I don't want your help. Keep your distance, sir, if you please. Now don't get angry, fair one, said the man. You don't know, but I may have made you an offer before I left the shop. Sir, said Mrs. Lovett, drawing herself up and striking terror into the hearts of the limbs of the law. Sir, what do you want? Say what you want and be served, sir, and then go. Do you want a pie, sir? A pie? Oh, dear no, I don't want a pie. I would not eat one of the nasty things on any account. Ha! Here the man spat on the floor. Oh, dear, don't ask me to eat any of your pies. Shame, shame, said several of the lawyer's clerks. Will any gentleman who thinks it a shame be so good as to step forward and say so a little closer? Everybody shrunk back upon this, instead of accepting the challenge, and Mrs. Lovett soon saw that she must, despite all the legal chivalry by which she was surrounded, fight her battles herself. With a look of vehement anger, she cried, Beware, sir, I am not to be trifled with. If you carry your jokes too far, you will wish that you had not found your way, sir, into this shop. That, madam, said the tall stout man, is not surely possible when I have the beauty of a Mrs. Lovett to gaze upon, and render the place so exquisitely attractive. But if you will not permit me to have the pleasure of helping you up with the next batch of pies, which, after all, you may find heavier than you expect, I must leave you to do it yourself, so that I am not troubled any longer by you, sir, at all, said Mrs. Lovett. I don't care how heavy the next batch of pies may happen to be, sir. Very good, madam. Upon my word, said a small boy, giving the side of his face a violent rub with the hope of finding the ghost of a whisker there. It's really too bad. Ah, who's that? Let me get at him. Oh, no, no, I mean that it's too bad of Mrs. Lovett, my dear sir. Oh, don't. Oh, very good. I am satisfied. Now, madam, you see that evening your dear friends here, from Lincoln's Inn. Are you from the inn, small boy? Yes, sir, if you please. Very good. As I was saying, Mrs. Lovett, you now must of necessity perceive that evening your friends from the inn feel that your conduct is really too bad, madam. Mrs. Lovett was upon this so dreadfully angry that she disdained any reply to the tall stout man, but at once she applied herself to the windlass, which worked up the little platform upon which a whole tray of 100 pies was wont to come up, and began to turn it with what may be called a vengeance. How very strange it was! Surely the words of the tall stout impertinent stranger were prophetic, for never before had Mrs. Lovett found what a job it was to work that handle as upon that night. The axle creaked, and the cords and the pulleys strained and wheezed, but she was a determined woman, and she worked away at it. I told you so, my dear madam, said the stranger. It is more evidently than you can do. Peace, sir. I am done. Work away, ma'am. Only don't say afterwards that I did not offer to help you. That's all. Indignation was swelling at the heart of Mrs. Lovett, but she felt that if she wasted her breath upon the impertinent stranger, she should have none for the windlass. So setting her tests, she fagged at it with a strength and a will that if she had not been in a right royal passion, she could not have brought to bear upon it on any account. There was quite an awful stillness in the shop. All eyes were bent upon Mrs. Lovett and the cavity through which the next batch of those delicious pies were coming. Those who had had the good fortune to get one of the first lot had only had their appetites heightened by the luxurious feast they had partaken of, while those who had had as yet none actually licked their lips and snuffed up the delightful aroma from the remains of the first batch. Two for me, Mrs. Lovett, cried a voice. One veal for me, 3 porks, 1 pork. The voices grew fast and furious. Silence, cried the tall, stout man. I will engage that everybody shall be fully satisfied, and no one shall leave here without a thorough conviction that his wants in pies has been more than attended to. The platform could be made to stop at any stage of its upward progress by means of a ratchet wheel and a catch, and now Mrs. Lovett paused to take breath. She attributed the unusual difficulty in working the machinery to her own weakness, contingent upon her recent immersion in the Thames. "Sir," she said between her clenched teeth, addressing the man who was such an eyesore to her in the shop, "Sir, I don't know who you are, but I hope to be able to show you when I have served these gentlemen that evening I am not to be insulted with impunity." "Anything you please, madam," he replied, in a small way, "only don't exert yourself too much." Mrs. Lovett flew to the windlass again, and from the manner in which she now worked at it, it was quite clear that when she had her hands free from that job, she fully intended to make good her threats against the tall stout man. The young beardless scions of the law trembled at the idea of what may happen, and now the tops of the pies appeared. Then they saw the rim of the large tray upon which they were, and then just as the platform itself was level with the floor of the shop, up flew tray and pies, as if something had exploded beneath them, and a tall slim man sprung upon the counter. It was the cook, who from the cellars beneath had laid himself as flat as he could beneath the tray of pies, and so had been worked up to the shop by Mrs. Lovett. Mrs. Lovett's cook astonishes her customers, rather. Mrs. Lovett's cook astonishes her customers, rather. "Gentlemen," he cried, "I'm Mrs. Lovett's cook. The pies are made of human flesh." We shrink, we tremble at the idea of attempting to describe the scene that ensued in the shop of Mrs. Lovett contingent upon this frightful apparition, and still more frightful speech of the cook, but duty, our duty to the public, requires that we should say something upon the occasion. If we can do nothing more, we can briefly enumerate what did actually take place in some instances. About 20 clerks rushed into Bell Yard, and there and then, to the intense surprise of the passers-by, became intensely sick. The cook, with one spring, cleared the counter and alighted amongst the customers, and with another spring, the tall impertinent man who had made many remarks to Mrs. Lovett of an aggravating tendency cleared the counter likewise in the other direction, and, alighting close to Mrs. Lovett, he cried, "Madam, you are my prisoner." For a moment, and only for a moment, the great, the cunning, and the redoubtable Mrs. Lovett lost her self-possession, and, staggering back, she lurched heavily against the glass case next to the wall, immediately behind the counter. It was only for a moment, though, that such an effect was produced upon Mrs. Lovett, and then, with a spring like an enraged tigress, she caught up a knife that was used for slipping under the pies and getting them cleanly out of the little tins, and rushed upon the tall stranger. Yes, she rushed upon him, but for once in a way, evening Mrs. Lovett had met with her match, with a dexterity that only long practice in dealings with the more desperate portion of human nature could have taught him. The tall man closed with her, and had the knife out of her hand in a moment. He at once threw it right through the window into Bell Yard, and then, holding Mrs. Lovett in his arms, he said, "My dear madam, you only distress yourself for nothing. All resistance is perfectly useless. Either I must take you prisoner, or you me, and I decidedly incline to the former alternative." The knife that had been thrown through the window was not without its object, for in a moment afterwards Mr. Crotchet made his appearance in the shop. "All right, Crotchet," said he who had captured Mrs. Lovett. "First clap the bracelets on this lady." "Here yer is," said Crotchet. "Lor, mum, I had a eye on you months and months agone. How is you, mum, in your feelin's this here nice evening? Eh, mum? A knife, a knife. Oh, for a knife," cried Mrs. Lovett. "Exactly, mum," added Crotchet, as he with professional dexterity slipped the handcuffs on her wrists. "Would you like one with a hivery handle, mum? Or would anything more common do, mum?" Mrs. Lovett fell to the floor, or rather she cast herself to it, and began voluntarily beating her head against the boards. They quickly lifted her up, and then the tall stranger turned to the cook, who, after leaping over the counter, had sat down upon a chair in a state of complete exhaustion, and he said, "Do you know the way to Sir Richard's office, in Craven Street? He expects you there, I believe?" "Yes, yes, but now that all is over, I feel very ill." In that case, I will go with you, then. Crotchet, who have you got outside? Only two of our pals, Muster Green. But it's all right, if so be as you leaves the lady to us. Very well, the warrant is at Newgate, and the governor is expecting her instant arrival. You will get a coach at the corner of the yard, and be off with her at once. All's right, said Crotchet. I knowed as she'd be nabbed, and I had one all ready, you sees. That was right, Crotchet. How amazingly quick everybody has left the shop. Why, what is all this? As the officer spoke, about half a dozen squares of glass in the shop window of the house were broken in, and a ringing shout from a dense mob that was rapidly collecting in the yard came upon the ears of the officer. The two men whom Crotchet had mentioned with difficulty pressed their way into the shop, and one of them cried, "The people that were in the shop have spread the news all over the neighborhood, and the place is getting jammed up with a mob. Every one of which is mad, I think, for they talk of nothing but of the tearing of Mrs. Lovett to pieces." Chapter CZI, The Route to Newgate, Mrs. Lovett's Danger from the Mob. Mrs. Lovett, upon hearing these words, turned ghastly pale, but she did not speak. The officers looked at each other with something like dismay, and then before either of them could say another word, there arose a wild, prolonged shout from without. Out with her, out with her, kill her, tear her to bits and hang her on the lamp post in the middle of Bell Yard. Out with her, drag her out, hang her, hang her. The coach you say is waiting, Crotchet, said the officer, who had been entrusted by Sir Richard Blunt with the conduct of the whole business connected with Mrs. Lovett's capture. It were, said Crotchet, and that coachman ain't the sort of fellow to move on till I tell him. I knows him. Very good. Then we must make a dash for it, and get her away by main force. It must be done, let the risk and the consequences be what they may, and the sooner the better, too. Come on, madam. Death, said Mrs. Lovett. Kill me here, some of you. Kill me at once, but do not let me be torn to pieces by a savage mob. Oh, God, they yell for my blood. Save me from them, and kill me here. A knife. Oh, for a knife. And a fork, too, mum, said Crotchet. In course, if you once am. I tells you what it is, Mr. Green, that their mob is just savage, and we have about as much chance of getting her down to Fleet Street with her head on her shoulders, as all of us have of flying over the blessed housetops. We must. It is our duty, and if we fail, they must kill us, which I don't think they will do. Come on. I will go with you, said the cook, starting up from the chair upon which he had on account of his weakness been compelled to seat himself. I will go with you, and implore the people to let the law take its course upon this woman. In the cupboard in the parlor, said Mrs. Lovett, speaking in a strange gasping tone, there is a letter addressed by me to Sir Richard Blunt. It will be worth your while to save it from the mob. Let me show you where to lay your hands upon it. And if you have any wish to take a greater criminal than I, go to the shop of one Sweeney Todd, a barber, in Fleet Street. His number is 69. Seize him, for he is the head of all the criminality you can possibly impute to me. Seize him, and I shall be content. The man you mention, said Mr. Green, has been in Newgate an hour nearly. Newgate? Yes. We took him first, and then attended to you. Todd, captured in Newgate, and I in fancied security here remained wasting the previous moments upon which hung my life. Though fool, dolt, idiot, a knife. Oh, sirs, I pray you to give me the means of instant death. What can the law do but take my life? What have you all come here, and plotted and planned for, but to take my life? I will do it. Oh, I pray you to give me the means, and I will satisfy you in justice, and die at once. Another loud roar from the infuriated people without drowned whatever the officer may have said in reply to this appeal from Mrs. Lovett, and again arose the wild shouts of out with her, hang her, hang the murderess, hang her in the yard, out with her, forward, cried Mr. Green, to hesitate is only to make our situation 10 times worse. Forward, hold a bit, cried Crotchet. Let me speak to the people. I knows how to humor 'em. Only you see if I don't get her along. Come, mum, just step this a ways if yer pleases. Open the door, Mr. Cook, and let me out first. The cook opened the door, and before the mob could rush into the place, Crotchet stepped onto the threshold of the shop, and in a tremendous voice that made itself heard above all others, he cried, "Hurrah! Hurrah!" Nothing is easier than to throw a cry into a crowd, and to get it echoed to your heart's content, and so some couple of hundred voices now immediately cried, "Hurrah!" And when the vast volume of sound had died away, Crotchet, in such a voice that it must have been heard in Fleet Street quite plainly, said, "My opinion is that Mrs. Lovett ought to be hung outright, and at once without any more bother about it." "Hurrah! Hang her!" shouted the mob. "And," added Crotchet, "I propose the lamp post at the top of Fleet Market as a nice public sort of place to do the job in. She says she won't walk, but I have a coach in Fleet Street, and we will pop her into that, and so take her along quite snug." "Yes, yes," cried the people, "bring her along, that will do." "Oh, will it?" muttered Crochet to himself. "What a precious set of ninnies you are. If I get her once in the coach, and she gets out again except to step into the stone jug, may I be hanged myself." "I think you have managed it, Crotchet," whispered Mr. Green. "I think that will do." "To be sure it will, sir. All's right. Bless your heart, mobs is the stupidest beasts as is. You may do anything you like with them if you will only let them have their own way a little, but if so be as you tries to fight 'em, they is all horns and porcupines, quills and stone walls, and iron rails, they is." "You are right enough, Crotchet. And now then let Smith stay here and mind the house, and shut it all up snug till the morning, when it can be thoroughly searched, and you and I and Simmons here will go with Mrs. Lovett." "And I too," said the cook. "We can go to Sir Richard's afterwards." So we can, so we can. Come on, now. You will deliver me up to the mob," screamed Mrs. Lovett. "Mercy, mercy, I shall be torn limb from limb. Oh, what a death! Are you men or fiends that you will condemn me to it? Mercy, mercy." This sudden passion of Mrs. Lovett's was the very thing the officers would have desired, inasmuch as it materially helped to deceive the mob, and to prevent any idea upon the part of the infuriated people that there was any collusion between the officers and Mrs. Lovett for the purpose of getting her safely to prison. They dragged her out into Bell Yard, and then the shouts that the mob set up was truly terrific. "Lights, Lynx," cried a voice. "Let's show her the way." In a moment an oil shop opposite to Mrs. Lovett's was plundered of a score or two of links, and being lighted with great rapidity from the solitary oil lamp that there stood in the middle of Bell Yard, they sent a bright lurid glare upon the sea of heads that seemed so close they may have been walked upon all the way to Fleet Street. Another shout echoed far and near, and then Crotchet took hold of one of Mrs. Lovett's arms, and Mr. Green hold of the other, and the cook and the other officers following. They all began slowly to make way through the mob. "Let's get along with her," cried Crotchet. "I have her tight. She won't get away. Some of you get a good stout rope ready, and make a noose in it. We will hang her on the lamp post at the top of the market. Bring her along. Make way a little, only a little." Mrs. Lovett shrieked as she saw the sea of angry faces before, behind, and on all sides of her. She thought that surely her last hour was come, and that a far more horrible death than any she had ever calculated upon in her worst moments of depression was about to be hers.